Inside a cold, sterile high-rise office, a manager explodes in fury, jabbing an accusatory finger as the younger subordinate stands there with his head bowed. He grinds through late nights, slumped alone at his desk, hammering his keyboard as the room echoes with every click while he battles mountains of paperwork. Burning eyes, dead tired, lock onto the clock as the minutes crawl past midnight. He slumps with a heavy sigh, praying this nightmare ends, and then, with one last decision, he forces himself to go home. He strides down a deserted road when his eyes catch a tiny white creature, and when he realizes it's a cat, he can't help but marvel at how elegant it looks for a stray. He creeps closer and a terrifying realization hits him. There's a cat right in the middle of the road, and he never saw the oncoming vehicle coming, so he blurts out a frantic warning. With a jolt of pure instinct, he lunged forward and shoved the cat out of the way just as the truck's blinding headlights came roaring toward them. A sharp, violent roar slices through the night like a warning you can't ignore. As his consciousness slips away, his whole life detonates in a flash, his parents abandoning him, then saddling him with their deaths, an exploitative company draining him dry, the crushing sting of still being single at 30. And in his final, fading breath, he bitterly admits just how miserable his life really was. He drifted in a sea of darkness, stunned, wondering if he'd really made it out alive, while voices rippled through the void, echoing but never revealing where they came from. His world tilted in an instant, like the room flipped the script, and there it was, a massive, ornate chandelier blazing overhead, and he couldn't stop staring, wondering if this was the moment he'd finally been brought to a hospital. A bright, cheerful voice snapped him out of his confusion. It was a maid, grinning as she congratulated the Wishto family on the birth of their firstborn, and those words kept pounding in his head until he could only stare, completely lost. With long, pale hair, Lord Allen stepped up and spoke to the maid. She swore the newborn was a boy and then asked if he'd picked out a name yet. Just as he opened his mouth, a hard-eyed man cut in and slammed down the name, Inoa, and the disembodied presence jerked back in panic, fighting to shout out, "My name is not Inoa." The protest drowned in silence, and his whole mind snapped into a newborn infant's body, eyes wide, stunned, and completely lost. Outside the grand Wishto mansion, voices buzzed as people watched the baby squirm. He kept lifting his hand, and everyone swore that meant he was already warming up to his new name. 8 years have crawled by since Inoa Wishto was born, and now he's sprawled on his bed, staring with pure, crushing boredom. Back when his birth excited him is long gone, replaced by the same dull day over and over. He stared at the end of his old life and finally admitted it. He really had died, and then the universe flipped the script, dropping him into a brand new world as a noble. This new life hooked him with a lavish, glorious mansion, 3 meals and naps ready on demand, like comfort on autopilot, and he swore it was the best thing ever. But there in bed, deep frustration started to rot from the inside, because this comfort felt like a cage, and he couldn't step outside to see the world with his own eyes. My mind sprinted through a million possibilities, picturing a world packed with jaw-dropping marvels, endless landscapes, and secrets so wild they were just beyond the mansion walls. With fresh resolve burning in his chest, he shot upright in bed and swore that today was the day. No more waiting, he was finally going to make his move. As he inched toward the doorway, his escape got slammed to a stop. Then a calm voice rang out, calling his name in Noah's Soma. He froze on the spot because he knew that voice instantly. Camilla. Maid Camilla tilted her head, flashing him a knowing smile as her glasses caught the light. Then she demanded to know where he thought he was headed. He stammered that he was just taking a quick walk, but she cut him off cold and demanded to know why he always tried to slip out of the mansion the second the chance appeared. Then she turned her gaze away just long enough for him to simmer with frustration before laying down the deal. He could go, but only if she stayed right there watching him the whole time, and all he could do was grumble about his awful luck under his breath. He strode beside Camilla across the broad, echoing pillar courtyard. His eyes snapped to the clang of steel. Right in the middle of the courtyard, 2 guards are sparring hard, one gripping a spear while the other battles back with sword and shield. The guards spot their audience and light up, greeting the young master with big smiles and asking what he needs. So Inoa blurts out that he wants to watch for a while, and the man practically beams, saying having him around lifts everyone's spirits. He stands there totally hooked, staring at the raw power on display, swords flashing, spears ready to strike, armor gleaming like it belongs in a live, moving legend. As he watches the training, his eyes snag on a lone guy in a pointed hat, standing far off and mumbling to himself, and Noah blurts out to Camilla what he's doing. She tells him it's a chant, the exact prep he needs before he can cast magic. He now can't look away as the mage keeps chanting. 1 minute turns to 5, then 10, and it never slows down. Camilla finally shoots him a glance and asks if he's trying to learn magic too, but Inao snaps back that he is. His denial doesn't come from stubbornness, it's pure confusion because he blurts out, Why can't the mage just cast spell after spell like in the stories I've read? Camilla smiles and tells him the truth. The stronger the magic, the longer the chant you need. Then she drops the real bombshell. He's a first-class mage, the pride of House Wished Owl. Right as she wraps up her explanation, the mage's endless prep finally pays off. Before his open hands, a blazing sigil snaps into existence, and he blasts a roaring torrent of fire magic. He finishes the incantation, and boom, a blazing fireball rockets out. The flame surges forward, and the training targets get instantly obliterated. That jaw-dropping spectacle hits young Inoa like a wave. His eyes blow wide with pure wonder and electric excitement. Still reeling from the raw power he just witnessed, Camilla decides it's time to bail. She tells Ino they should head back to the mansion, and Ino nods quietly, agreeing. On their way back, he whips around to his maid and presses her with a serious question, wondering out loud if he should stop wasting time and start learning real skills like swordsmanship or magic. She shuts that idea down on the spot, tells Inao-sama it's pointless, and insists it's still way too soon for him. Then he nods like he gets it, murmuring that even then, it was never really what he wanted to do. She leans in and tells him straight up she's done chasing either one, then shrugs him off to play in his room with blocks or a juggling ball, before dropping the weirdest hint yet: she's 30 on the inside. Her strange remark snaps him to a stop. He stares at her, and a fresh wave of questions starts brewing, until her face goes totally unreadable and he can't help but shift course. Right as he's about to finish, she tilts in and snaps her face inches from his. Then that huge, unsettling grin blooms as she whispers, "Shall I play with you?" And the words hit Inoa like a punch, leaving him totally frozen. Her hand cradled his cheek while she stared at his flustered, blushing face, and Inao nearly choked on her own surprise, stammering his name like, "Wait, what's going on?" She leaned in, her voice turning soft as she confessed she was so full of love she wanted to devour him, and that sweetly terrifying confession shocked the young boy to the core. He bolted out of the room and the door slammed behind him, and from the other side his voice burst through, panicked, begging to play with blocks and a juggling ball, while Camilla just quietly clocked how shy her young master really was. He slumped against the shut door, heart hammering like it wanted out, so close it still made his blood run cold. As he strode off, the whole encounter finally hit him. Camilla had always been that bold, and it landed like a wake-up slap, so from now on, he'd be way more careful around her. And somehow it all clicked. He finally faced the truth and admitted he could understand her feelings, at least a little. He was, for real, a young marvel of androgynous beauty, every feature carved so perfectly you couldn't find a single flaw. The moment he clocked what he looked like, heat exploded across his cheeks, and he couldn't stop himself from staring off into the distance like, "Why am I blushing just thinking about my own face?" He and Lord Allen are summoned to the dining hall, and when the smiling chef steps up, he announces that their dinner is finally ready. Right in front of them sits a stunning feast, packed with perfectly cooked dishes, and the chef practically boasts that he poured extra effort into every bite. Then the moment of truth hits and Noah marvels how delicious everything appears asterisk. It's finally ready to eat. He takes a bite and pure delight lights up his face at that exquisite flavor. Then it hits him as he stares at the plate. This is Lady Trisha's dinner. Across from him sits Trisha, a girl from a lesser branch of the Wishdale family, and while he digs into the feast, she just picks at a plain bowl of porridge and murmurs thanks under her breath. Everyone knows the servants treat her like trash for who her family is. He spots the brutal contrast between their meals, then slides one of his fancy dishes across the table like he's making a point, right in front of them. Her eyes snapped wide at the move. He just lifted a finger to his lips, shushing her in silence, begging her to keep his actions out of sight. Then he flashes her a warm smile and tells her, "No way I can finish all this, let's share." And when he thanks her ahead of time, Trisha just freezes, stunned yet grateful. Even with all his kindness, he can't ignore the gap between them, because he knows she'll never fully open her heart to him, like that tough emotional armor is just the only shield her life has left her. He gives her a gentle smile, praying that someday him and Trisha can finally get along. She blushes hard, stumbles for a second, and then quietly nods, sharing the exact same hope. The calm shatters when a man's voice screams his name, Noah, and Noah jerks back, answering with a quick, eager yes. After dinner, Lord Allen calls Inoa to his room and tells him it's finally time to learn real skills. Inoa looks up, nods, and agrees instantly. After the exchange, he's left staring at that strange instruction, and his mind won't stop spinning. What on earth could they mean by skills? Soon he faces a towering wall of doors, and from the other side, a voice beckons him to step inside. He bursts into the room, announcing himself, and right away, boom, he's staring at a gigantic library until a voice from somewhere inside snaps, "Sit." Inside, Inoa spots Lord Allen, lounging on a seat, calmly reading a book, and when his eyes lock on the man, ice-cold dread hits hard. This isn't a father's love at all. It's Alan Wishdell's presence, and it feels empty. Alan finally opens his mouth, and his cryptic words hit like a warning. Everything depends on your worth, while Anoa just stands there, staring at the ominous meaning that won't let up. He stammers, totally rattled by the question of his worth because he thought the heart was a solid answer, until embarrassment crashes over him in a brutal wave. Lord Alan just watches, that knowing, almost amused look on his face, like he's already figured out his answer was truly that bad. Inoa stares wide-eyed as Alan's vibe flips, his face hardens. He presses his fingers to his lips and snaps that the answer isn't luck, it's skills. Then he lays it all out. The skills you win in that evaluation ritual at 12 are what decides your true worth. Inside the Wishdell clan, he says, combat skills are treated like the gold standard. Inoa just absorbs the weight of it all in silence, then nods once and says he gets it. In this world, skills aren't created equal. They come with ranks split into 6 levels, starting at the weak F, climbing higher and higher until you reach the rare, earth-shaking A. Right before Inoa Wishdell hit his 12th birthday, he sat across from his father as the man's voice turned cold and serious, talking about how heavy their name really was. As a noble of House Wishdell, Inoa was supposed to carry power beyond common people, yet his father felt the truth was so obvious it didn't even need spelling out. He planted a heavy hand on his son's head, his face swallowed by shadow, and told him dead serious that Noah had better carry out his duty. The boy could only squeak out a nervous yes. And then time marched on until he hit 12. At last, the day of the skill evaluation ceremony crashed in, right there at the grand church. Inside, a massive crowd had packed the place, and Inoa marched alone down Long Aisle, his tiny footsteps banging through the huge cavern as he closed in on the efficient altar. From the pews, the Wished Owl household's biggest names stared out. Lord Alan flashed a confident smile. The head chef and his team stood ready. The maids Camilla and her partner watched, and even young Trisha was there. Noah felt that massive, collective stare smash into him, like their eyes could pierce his skin, and he realized about 100 people tied to his family had shown up just to watch this moment. Lord Alan flashed a calm, reassuring smile at Inoa and promised him everything would be fine, then boldly declared that the boy was destined to awaken a rank of combat skill. Only Inoa felt none of that comfort, because deep down he couldn't shake the thought that fighting skills just didn't match the pacifist he was trying to be. They stood before the official, wrapped in a roaring vortex of light, while the evaluator shot a hand up and rumbled the word Aurora, declaring that the evaluation was about to begin. And just like that, the results hit right in front of him, because the scale finally showed what he was dealing with, a camping rank of SS. His eyes went huge with shock and his brain scrambled to catch up with what he just heard, camping. He blurted, not believing a word of it. So his mind wandered straight to a plain lantern and a scrap of wood. Then he imagined himself in a calm forest, kicked back outside a tent with a warm drink in hand, and a slow smile crept across his face as the truth hit him. This might be the exact skill he's been looking for. That sweet satisfaction got ripped apart by a furious roar. His father's face turned into a rage mask as he screamed, demanding to know what kind of trash skill this was, because he couldn't wrap his head around how something this bad even managed an SS rank, when it didn't come close to the expected A. He kept tearing into the evaluator, snapping that the result was some weird classification he'd never even heard of, then demanded a re-evaluation, while smugly insisting his son was useless, like there was no point in checking at all. As his father snapped at the official, Inao kept his face cool, even though he knew SS was supposed to sit above A, and this was the first time he'd ever seen his dad completely lose control. He figured honestly that in a world without video games, it wasn't exactly shocking they'd get tangled up in a ranking system like that. His father can't stomach the result. He clutches his head and wails in anguish, convinced this is his son's real, crushing face, a low classification he's never even heard of. The household staff tries to soothe him, but his panic drowns out every single plea. Bottled-up rage detonates into a full-on outburst. He jabs a shaking, accusing finger at his son, screams their family name, and demands what he wished out. That boy stays ice-cold, face set, eyes locked, while his father's rage crashes down on him. Lord Alan tries to slam the chaos back into place, telling the furious lord that another evaluation is set for today, then pushes them to move forward, only to get Father Wishdell's grumpy, one-word consent, fine. Father Wishdell is still stunned. He clamps a hand to his temple, while Lord Alan declares the next evaluation goes to Trisha. Trisha hears her name, snaps her gaze upward, and confirms she's right there, while Inoa watches in silence from behind. Lord Alan is praying that Trisha gets a top-tier skill. He knows just how brutal life has been for her, even with her position. And Father Al, desperate for a win, is begging that she unleashes a powerful, high-ranking combat technique, because he's convinced that one move could skyrocket her status in an instant. Trisha's wish snaps into reality. She steps onto the platform, and a blazing burst of light forms an air around her as a rank and a brand new skill manifest right there, the exact same kind of power the legendary magic swordsman hero was famous for. He now couldn't believe it, her success was undeniable, and as it all finally hit him, his eyes went wide. He blurted out in pure excitement, "She got it." Then his fists shot up, clenched tight in full-on celebration. That joy spread like wildfire. Father Wishdall erupted in triumphant laughter. All his old fury vanished as he strode ahead, grinning with pure elation. He spun toward Trisha, congratulating her and marveling that she had the same skill as the hero, until her reply wasn't thanks at all. A chilling, maniacal laugh tore through the hall, and it left him frozen, stunned, and speechless. Her laughter kept ringing, and a chilling realization slowly snapped into place in his mind, because he suddenly remembered every time she'd been nothing but kind to him. She finally snapped, voice cold as ice, with a cruel smile that said, "That kindness you remember was just a mask." She laid bare the truth. She'd been looking down on him from the start, and now the tables were turning, because the next person to get judged. He went completely speechless, his thoughts spinning, because he never once meant to look down on her. He just wanted them to get along, and then the truth of what she was feeling slammed into him, so hard it knocked the breath right out of his chest. Could it be true? He stared, stunned, and his face fell apart. Had Trisha really been hating him this whole time? Before he could even wrap his head around it, his father shoved him aside and drove him crashing to the floor. "Move," his father barked, sweeping all his focus onto Trisha, declaring she was the only one worthy to inherit the wished-for Al house, as Lord Allen leaned in and heaped on praise for him. He stayed sprawled on the floor, shell-shocked, while Trisha loomed over him with a wicked smirk, then looked their father in the eye and demanded what would happen to Lord Noah now. His tear-filled eye, wide, shattered, and stinging with disbelief, locked onto his father's look, narrowed, merciless, and drenched in icy indifference. That icy silence cracked, and a formal decree hit the room. Father Wishto stood up and declared Ino's fate. He was being shipped straight to the sacred mountain of Erasmus. His father stared down at him and dropped the final, crushing blow, "You're no longer my son." In that sudden silence, the words slammed back with a cruel echo, and Inoa's face twisted in shock as reality shattered into nothing. Elsewhere in the hall, the household staff froze in stunned disbelief, while Lord Allen, a guard, and Camilla all whispered, "No way," each one clinging to disbelief as they struggled to accept the Lord's brutal verdict. For Inoa, their shock barely landed. His mind snapped back to memory, training, care, and standing by his father's side, until one bitter truth hit him hard. They didn't want him. They wanted a noble with talent. That brutal truth sank in like ice, locking in a terrifying certainty. If his worth was only measured by usefulness, then he'd end up judging everyone the exact same way. He snapped with icy certainty that that house meant nothing to him, and he'd take his exile like it was a gift. So he got left behind on that brutal, snow-choked mountain, the sacred peak of Erasmus, where nobody could hear him. He stared up at the sky and felt disgust burn over his family's cowardice. They were ready to get rid of him without lifting a finger or staining their own hands. Just as despair crashed down, a wild new idea started to spark in his mind. He realized that if his destiny, back in his old world, was nothing but getting exploited, then he'd rather take his final breath out here in the wild. A jolt of realization hit him. He had a skill called camping. Hope surged, and without wasting a second, he dove in and tried it right away. He hit the skill button and bam, a bizarre menu popped up in front of him, overflowing with survival essentials: a tent, a chair, supplies, a frying pan, and even a cooking table. In the blink of an eye, the chosen items slammed into the clearing, and a fully stocked campsite was suddenly ready to go. I swear his eyes light up with pure joy, because somehow the stuff he's thinking about doesn't just show up, it materializes out of thin air, right on his command. He drops into that rock-solid chair, then eyes every last provision like he's hunting for details. The vegetables gleam, the meat looks top tier, and he can't help wondering if it's because it's all the dreaded rank SS stuff. A surge of pure excitement hits him like a thunderclap, and he lets out a joyful sigh he can't hold back. Then his mind snaps to cooking. No fire, no food. He stacks the firewood, sets up the next camping move, and strikes a match to light the fire. As soon as he starts, a massive, razor-detailed magic circle explodes in the sky above him, flooding everything with a blazing red glow. He snaps his head up, stunned, and can't stop himself from asking, what the hell is happening? The circle's energy funnels straight into his outstretched hand, and then bam, blinding light bursts from the firewood as his eyes go wide with pure shock. Way stronger than anyone predicted, out of nowhere, that peaceful, forest-covered mountainside rips into motion from far away. A massive pillar of golden light rockets out of the trees, blasting straight through the sky like it owns the heavens. Ino freezes with wide-eyed shock, soot smeared across his face, as the fire pillar he conjured keeps roaring up into the sky. The eruption's blast hurls him straight to the dirt, and before he even catches his breath, he mutters a furious curse, because those sparks from the magical blaze have already ignited the grass all around. Panic rockets through him as the nightmare clicks in. If this keeps going, the whole mountain will go up in flames. He has to kill the fire right now. He scrambles for an answer, his thoughts slamming forward, and then bam, an idea hits. With fresh fire in his chest, he thrusts out his hand and triggers another camping action to draw water. The moment he calls the skill, a gigantic glowing blue magic circle explodes across the sky, and he instantly recognizes the symbols from before. Then, from the very center, an absurdly huge metal bucket materializes out of thin air. The object hangs in midair for a heartbeat, perfectly centered above that roaring column of flames. With a sickening groan, it slowly starts to tip, like it's about to spill its hidden contents all over the place. His eyes snap wide with pure horror from down below, and dread hits him as he watches the giant bucket tilt. No, don't tell me. His plan to smother the flames backfired instantly. When the giant bucket tipped, it dumped a solid sheet of water everywhere. Everything dumped at once, spilling into a single, brutal waterfall that crashed down into the forest below. As the water slammed down like a thunderous wall, its wild mist lit up the sunlight and flashed a brief, blazing rainbow before it vanished. The impact slammed down so hard it drenched the whole landscape, turning that clearing into a brief, flooded nightmare. In the soaked undergrowth, sputtering coughs echoed through the woods, and the silence suddenly felt like it was listening. He lay on his back, drenched and dazed, staring straight up at the sky. Then a horrifying truth hit him like a wave. His camping skills were way more dangerous than he'd ever imagined. Rage and dread twisted in his chest when a giant white paw slammed onto the cliff edge nearby, and its owner stared down at everything below. A colossal white tiger loomed above the flooded forest, staring down with sharp, knowing eyes, then let out a low chuckle, like it had just clocked a legendary, maybe notorious display of power. A quiet little stream slips through a thick, sun-splashed forest, winding softly around the roots of ancient trees. Suddenly, a sleek outdoor fan powers up with a thunderous whir, blasting to life like it's got a job to do. Noah Wishto stares at it with a huge, hopeful grin, blurting whether that thing can really zap the damp ground dry. He can't believe his eyes, this area is already bone dry, so he decides it's time to bail from the spot that was soaked, and he quickly stashes his backpack. Hidden in the thick shadows of the woods, two massive, glowing eyes suddenly flared to life as the boy finally caught them. He halts mid-motion, dread slamming into him out of nowhere, then it hits him like a punch, something standing right behind him. The source of that power finally shows itself. A gigantic white tiger slips out from the undergrowth without a sound, and its eyes lock onto him. His eyes bulged with sheer terror, and one stunned word ripped from his mouth: egg, tiger. He froze in place, not with fear, but with pure awe, because those turquoise eyes of the creature burned like living light, and even the brilliant white shimmer felt impossibly beautiful to him. A beast's low growl snapped him out of his dream, like a thunderclap, and he instantly realized he couldn't just stand there gaping. Colossal tiger slammed into place and refused to move, and a near-miraculous mist rose off its brutal power like it was alive. He started forward at a slow, careful pace, closing the gap between them step by step. Panic slammed into him, and his mind shrieked one brutal thought: it's coming to swallow him whole. As the creature closed in, Panic screamed that he had to move, but his body refused to obey. Then the tiger's huge head slid right in front of him, and it gave him this gentle, curious nuzzle like a soft hug. Then the beast's mouth opened, and a deep, shocking voice poured out, crystal clear, calling him a genuinely good person. The boy's terror snapped into total disbelief in the blink of an eye. His brain couldn't even catch up, like, wait, could that creature really talk? He planted his feet, heart pounding as one brutal question tore through his mind for the towering beast. Why didn't it strike when it had the perfect opening? And the tiger answered with a furious roar, laying out its reasons in a thunder of passion. The creature's logic was downright weird. It said the tiger was one of its favorite felines, then flashed a mental picture of a huge lion lounging in a crowd of cats, from leopards and pumas all the way to everyday house cats. That ridiculous logic left him rattled. He shot his hand up like, wait, and tried to yell out a protest just to make the whole mess make sense. His protest died on his tongue the moment he finally saw it. Pure dread vanished, replaced by a breathy murmur: that tiger is truly beautiful. The great beast just stared back, expression locked tight and unreadable. Then he tossed his fear aside for good, and the excitement surged in his chest. He leaned in and told the startled tiger to calm down, openly gawking at its fluffy fur, its cute, elegant look, and those mesmerizing eyes. A tiger looked stunned by how boldly this was handled, snarling about disrespect toward a sacred beast. then muttered that maybe this kind of love made sense for the one who actually saved the cat god's life. Inoa's voice came out confused as he insisted, "I didn't mean any harm." As he talked, a new figure snapped into existence in a flash of light, a gigantic, fluffy white cat. It didn't even finish freaking out before it stammered, "What is this, the cat god?" The tiger stayed cool and calmly nodded, "Yes." The white tiger blurted that since Inoa had rescued the cat god, it was now forced to return the deed, lifting its paw like it was signing a sacred pact. Inoa got flustered and tried to refuse repayment, but right then a new thought hit him, straight from that divine feline. It was starving. He's left totally stunned as the white tiger's voice pounds in his head, and the thing smugly thinks that humans don't even look like they'd be worth eating. It leans in close, those eyes blazing as it tells Inoa, right to his face, that it looks delicious, and the boy chokes down a swallow, instantly drenched in cold sweat. That giant feline yanks back with a smug grin, and suddenly it's all just kidding. It would never devour the boy who saved it. Relief hits him hard, but he can't shake the fact that a tiger's joke still sounds way too lethal. He snaps back fast, then offers to whip up a meal for the starving cat god, and just like that the tiger's act flips, his mood ignites with pure excitement as he blurts that if Inoa can cook, he needs to do it right now. Snapping up the job, the boy urges, "Let's move now." The tiger whirls back toward him, thrown off for a split second by the idea. In response, the great beast throws its back open, beckoning the startled boy to leap on, telling him it's completely safe, yet Inoa can only freeze, staring up at the endless, towering wall of striped fur. Still caught in his hesitation, he blurts out an apology for the trouble, then scrambles onto the tiger's back, and the moment he lands, it hits him like a tidal wave. He shoves his face into that thick fur and, bam, pure bliss lights up his expression when he finally feels just how ridiculously fluffy it is. He flopped back, swallowed head to toe by that pure white fur, soft as woven silk, warm in a way that soothed his heart instantly. He burrowed into the plush coat, smiling in pure comfort, while the tiger stayed calm under him. Just when he thought he could breathe, the massive beast hauled itself upright, crackling with raw energy, and the tiger's voice slammed into his head, "Hold on tight." He barely even got his grip confirmed before the tiger tore forward, in one explosive burst of speed. As the great beast launched through the forest, everything around them blurred into a wild streak of pure motion. With the sling hurling him onto its back, Inoa blurted out in shock, gasping, "What's happening?" as the brutal speed stole the air from his lungs. He snapped that there was no reason to run like this, but the tiger looked utterly baffled, then casually told him it was actually running slow, and that one line hit Inoa like a jolt because they were already creeping right toward the edge of the forest. Right as he barely caught up with what was happening, the tiger exploded into one last thunderous leap, clearing the tree line like it was nothing and landing in the wide-open land beyond. After he steps into a grassy clearing, a white tiger points the way and tells him they should eat right there. The beast leans in and growls that it knows the tastiest ingredients up on that mountain, then bolts off to snatch them fast. Noah nods, and the next instant the tiger rockets away in a blur, slamming dust into the air and making the boy jump out of his skin. All alone, he grins to himself, thinking, "I could have grabbed the ingredients myself, my skill's good enough." He starts racking his brain about what to cook, bouncing between boring camp curry, turning that leftover meat into a straight-up steak, or going all out with something bigger. Then his mind snaps to that infamous chef who served food so delicious it made mouths water, yet was absolutely despicable. He freezes in place for a beat, staring up at the open sky like his thoughts are fighting for control. At the Wishdell family home, the young Trisha drills like her life depends on it, then unleashes a savage roar as she whips a wooden practice sword through the air. From far away, a guard watches her training like he can't look away, then nudges a buddy and asks if Lady Trisha is already at it, and the other just shrugs, saying it's exactly what you'd expect from a magic swordwoman. Then his mind snapped to her brother, "What the heck is Inoa doing?" As he stared, his buddy's face soured when he realized this mountain is crawling with deadly monsters. With her brother's useless skill, he could only grimly conclude, Inoa is probably already gone. He lays it all on the table, remembering how that very mountain wiped out a whole company of soldiers just last month. Then he leans in and asks, was the monster behind it all climbing out of that same place too? Meanwhile, up on that same brutal mountain, Inoa stands there like he owns the sky in front of a towering feather beast. Then its talons surge toward him, and Inoa frantically tries to remember what it's called. Remembers is the monstrous bird, the cockatrice, lurking in the shadows. A blinding flash of light erupts between them out of nowhere. The blast slams the cockatrice backward, and it tumbles mid-step, blasting a blood-curdling, furious shriek into the air. He stares as that monstrous chicken-looking thing stumbles back to life, flaps its wings hard, and regains its footing on the dusty ground. The boy stumbles backward, heart slamming like a drum, because that attack was so close it almost swallowed him whole. He locks eyes with the beast, stunned. What kind of monster is this, and did it really come to devour him? Just as he's still trying to wrap his head around the threat, the creature lets out a terrifying shriek and rockets into the air, diving straight at him. With no chance to run, he snaps his arm up on pure instinct, panic screaming through him. He has to shield himself right now, and as that desperate thought hits, his mouth starts to form a word. A massive, solid cutting board slams out of thin air, cracking the monster's charge and sending the cockatrice flying back with a vicious screech of pain as it smashes into something impossibly hard. Inoa spots that familiar chicken-like face even as it reels. As the creature screams in agony, it hits him. This chicken monster isn't just gross, it could be dinner, and his mind instantly floods with sizzling skewers, crispy fried drumsticks, and a perfectly roasted bird. With fear getting drowned out by raw hunger, he stiffens in place as the enraged cockatrice whips back toward him, eyes blazing with fresh resolve. Then he jabs a finger at the beast and declares, "I'm going to eat you." The monster glares with teeth bared in pure fury, but Inoa's already locked in, sure. He's made a bold promise, yet the real nightmare is figuring out how to land the catch and actually bag the thing. He froze in shock as the cockatrice tore the air apart with a piercing, guttural shriek. That scream snapped everyone to attention. Then a huge white tiger exploded out of nowhere, launching a vicious side lunge and smashing the cockatrice with a thunderous swipe of its paw. The crash hit like a thunderclap, flinging him backward in a brutal tumble, and all he could do, shaking and stunned, was stare at the smoking impact, totally unable to believe what just happened. He scrambled away in pure panic, his mind racing for a plan, because up close he couldn't win, not with a knife, not with a rope, so he forced himself to go for range with his skill, but he had no clue how to make it work. He wailed that there was no way a kid's strength could ever topple it, and then, right as he thought it through, something fresh clicked into place. He set the plan loose, sprang to his feet, and yelled at the creature, calling it a stupid bird, and dared it to try and take a bite. The taunt hit like a punch, and the cockatrice went berserk, screeching as rage surged, its eyes blazing with deadly, glowing light while it charged straight at them. When a monster bore down on him, he didn't flinch. He activated his skill, pulled up a pair of sunglasses, slid them on, stared down the charging beast, and barked the order. With a cocky grin, he snaps up an ornate lantern and fires off a blinding flash at full power, flooding the charging cockatrice in pure light until it screeches, lost and disoriented. As the dazed monster lurches, he yanks out his next weapon, a huge metal sandwich maker, and with full confidence, he swears this will be the final hit that ends their fight with. With a fierce shout, he drives his fist forward and barks for the device to snap shut. The sandwich maker claps shut with a thunderous clang, locking the squawking cockatrice in tight like it never stood a chance. With his opponent shut down, he claps his hands like he's offering gratitude, murmurs "itadakimasu," and then smugly copies the creature's cry as if it's part of the menu. Then he whips out a portable bonfire and sets the sandwich maker right on its grate, tweaks the flames like he's dialing in the perfect heat, barks for it to ignite, and with a flash, a magical circle erupts beneath it. Flames roar to life, cooking the metal prison as muffled cries from the cockatrice claw through the heat. As steam starts to curl off the sizzling device, he leans in and watches the heat, muttering that because the creature's huge, he's got to take his time and cook it slow. A booming shout cuts him off, and a huge white tiger rushes in apologizing for the delay, bouncing toward him while a big cloth-wrapped bundle hangs from its back. A tiger drops down right in front of him, and Inoa leans in with a confident chuckle, asking what it's brought. The beast just grins and orders him to open the bundle, right now, and see for himself. As he peels it open, a freaky stash of weird mushrooms, herbs, and even bone-like pieces spills out, and Inoa recoils, his face draining of color with pure disgust and shock. Even after everything, the tiger swears those treats are so damn delicious that it once fainted from the taste, still shaken and now pushes, "Can we really eat this?" And the tiger immediately fires back, thrilled, yes. He tiptoes over to the pile and lifts a dark, bark-like strip, raises it to his nose, and confirms it reeks of seaweed and mountain herbs. His hesitation still gnaws at him, but he tells himself this other world is full of wild ingredients, so he stops fighting it. He'll trust the white tiger's word. As he's stuck in thought, the tiger blurts out that it too had tried to carry a tasty bird down from the mountains, but for some reason it wasn't from the nest, and the word bird snaps Noah's attention like a trap. He shoots back, "Is it the one with the red crest?" And the tiger snaps into shock, demanding, "How did you know?" As a cockatrice image flashes in his head, everything clicks in his mind like a lock turning. "I knew it." He boasts that he's cooking the cockatrice right this second, swearing his win is all because of his own skill, while the white tiger just gapes in disbelief, demanding to know how he possibly beat it. Without answering right away, he tells them, "While the meat cooks, let's whip up another dish, mushrooms and mountain herbs." The tiger's surprise vanishes for a second, and it nods along with pure excitement. He pulls out yet another portable bonfire, sets a pot right on top, then pours in water from a special container and tosses in herbs to kick off the broth. Meanwhile, he snaps his focus to the rest of the ingredients and raises a sharp knife to start chopping. His knife darts with pinpoint precision, chopping through strange mushrooms and underground roots before they can even twitch. Once the broth is ready, he yanks the wild herbs out of the pot and drops in the freshly chopped ingredients. Then he sprinkles in the right amount of sake, mirin, and soy sauce, seals the pot tight, and lets it boil to perfection. 5 minutes later, that mouthwatering aroma explodes through the air as the food finally nears the finish line, and the white tiger, utterly hypnotized, starts drooling and roaring like, "Gimme that now," as it slams the warning to Anoa to keep us alive. The meal's finally done. Right there on the table sits a perfectly grilled cockatrice, flanked by a steaming pot of otherworldly mushroom and herb stew, and that aroma floods the whole room as Inao leans in and declares it finished, marveling at how downright delicious everything looks. He whips around to the white tiger, clutching salt and pepper grinders, and tells it the meat's got zero flavor right now, so he's fixing it before anyone eats, asking the creature to hang on just a second longer. The great beast starts slobbering, eyes bulging like it's about to feast, and it declares, straight up, that in its current form it can't properly savor the whole meal with body and soul. Inoa whips around, totally lost, staring at the bizarre claim of. Right before he can even reply, a gigantic burst of white smoke explodes out from where the tiger was sitting. Inoa gets jolted by a sudden burst of smoke, and she stares into the twisting cloud like she can't believe what she's seeing. As the smoke tears open, a sharp feminine figure steps into view, and Inoa freezes, points, and stammers in pure, stunned disbelief. She finally steps into the light, white hair blazing, bright blue eyes wide, and those white tiger ears and tail twitching behind her. Then she strikes a playful pose and proudly blurts that her humanoid beast mode is here. Down below, Inoa just freezes, completely dumbfounded. The white-haired woman with tiger ears lazily stretches and sighs in pure bliss, like somehow, being human makes the wind hit her skin just right. Catching Noah completely off guard, Noah freezes, utterly stunned, and blurts out a shaky question about why she's standing there in a human form. She snapped to the truth, then blurted, "You're a woman, always have been." Still trying to wrap her head around it, Inoa fires off a follow-up question. If she's really female, then why did she talk with that ridiculously masculine tone earlier? For a split moment, confusion flashes across her face as his questions sink in. With pure blazing pride, she lets a terrifying beast form, right behind her, ignite in full view, and she basically says, "Yeah, calling myself the sacred white tiger like this just makes me look even more badass." The shock melts away and a new kind of awareness hits him. Heat rises, a blush spreads across his face, and his eyes narrow as his thoughts flip completely, pushing him to start talking about something else. His eyes drop lower, soaking in her outfit, or what's left of it, because that barely there white cloth, stitched in place by golden rings, doesn't exactly leave much to the imagination. He floods the scene with a deep red, totally crushed, spiraling into full-blown panic because her clothes look way too revealing, and he has no clue where he's even supposed to look. She's still rattled by how she looks when a tiger woman scoots in close, grinning wide as she asks for his name. He stammers for a second, then finally introduces himself the way Inoa wanted, and when he's done, her grin blooms as she tells him good night. Then she snaps into formal mode too, introduces herself with the same icy politeness as Tia Fresberg, and extends her hand. Inoa freezes, eyes huge, before taking the handshake and locking in their introduction. After a while, Inao steps up in front of a massive wooden cooking structure and starts getting their meal ready. Carefully seasons a huge cut of meat, then slaps it over the heat to start cooking. The roast comes out perfectly cooked, sliced clean, and shining like it's begging everyone to take a bite. Across from Tia, he mirrors her pose, clasps his hands, offers a heartfelt thanks, then they dig in. The first bite blasted a wave of flavor through them, and bam, every eye snapped open at once like they all silently agreed, this food is insanely good. It takes a bite and instantly judges the flavor. Yep, just like he thought. It tastes like chicken, but the richness hits harder with every chew. Then he takes a sip of the broth, and the weird mushrooms plus mountain herbs hit him with a surprising punch of aroma and flavor, spreading a cozy warmth through his whole body. Across from him, Tia Fresberg kicks her feet in pure delight, savoring every bite, and she practically swears the meat and mushrooms taste 100 times better than usual. Then she calls him a cooking genius, but Noah just waves the praise off, humble as ever. Suddenly his face snaps into pure shock, then an unfamiliar force surges through his body, and that strange energy comes roaring to life inside him. Seeing his alarm, Tia blurts, "Aren't you feeling full of energy?" But her question only leaves him more confused. She realizes he still hasn't caught on, so she rolls her arms, blurts that the food is crazy delicious. So delicious it pumps her up exactly like she predicted. Then it finally clicks, and Enora agrees. Agreement fizzles out as a bold thought ignites in his head, and he just stares at that spoon like it holds secrets. Sure, it tastes amazing, but what if there's more to it? Tia leans in and asks if it's not almost asterisk 2 asterisk delicious, and suddenly a fresh line of logic snaps into place for him. At that exact moment, his eyes flared with pure focus, and he snapped a skill into action, camping, analyzed down to the bone. Then their meal cooked up something unreal, an otherworldly mushroom and herb stew that maxed their HP, healed fast, refueled magic, resisted poison, and even sharpened their intelligence, while the grilled cockatrice cranked up max HP, attack, agility, and doubled down on poison resistance. He froze, staring at the results, his suspicions snapped into place. That food really was the culprit. He'd never seen anything like it. Out here, food didn't just fill you up, it could boost your abilities. And then a new thought hit him like lightning. His thoughts shot straight to where these weird effects were coming from. Maybe the food was special, and the cooking utensils he'd picked up along with his camping skills were hiding some secret property. Deciding he couldn't back down, he zeroed in on one tool, snatched up the knife he'd already used, then slammed his skill back on. Analyze. He unveiled the knife's insane power, an otherworldly camping blade called asterisk true cut asterisk asterisk, and the results were wild. It supercharged every ingredient, crushed toxins dead, spiked your odds of rare effects, and slammed your stat boosts higher, then capped it all by slicing through anything like it was air, with an edge that never ever dulls. The truth hit him like a punch, eyes bulging, breath caught, because it meant one thing: the more he ate food cooked with his camping utensils, the stronger he'd get. Just when he was frozen by the shock of the revelation, a cheerful voice snapped him back. Tia grinned at him, holding out her empty plate and bowl, and begged for another serving. She clocked the strange look on his face, tilted her head, and demanded, "Why are you just staring at that knife?" Then she raised her voice again, trying to snap him out of his spiral. She clocked his far-off stare and told him to drop it for later, then waved him off with, "Get yourself another serving." He snapped back like he'd been yanked from a dream. Ino grinned and apologized, admitting he'd been completely distracted. Right after they stuffed themselves, the whole table lit up with satisfied smiles, and Tia capped it off by declaring that was the best sheet hat ever. With Emil finally out of the way, Tia pushed them to stop, rest, and talk, leaning in so close her focus felt sharp. She locked eyes with Noah and demanded he tell her about himself. When he looked stunned, she pressed on, asking what kind of life he'd lived and how he ended up helping the cat god. He froze up for a second, even admitting his life felt way too dull to matter. Then she waved it off, eyes locking in with real sincerity as she demanded she wanted to know everything about him, anything at all. Her smile stretched wide as she shrugged off the whole thing, then just said she was interested in him, straight up. Noah froze for a second, totally caught off guard, and heat shot up his cheeks as a blush spread fast. Before he could even answer, she lit up with a cheerful idea. "Come on, let's find a spot in the meadow to talk." And she was already up on her feet, waving him over and practically dragging him along to hurry. Moments later, they sat side by side in the meadow, grass swaying all around them, and after a short, tense quiet, Ino finally made up his mind. He was going to kick off his tale by telling her everything about his past life. And as the sun slid under the horizon and painted the hills and fields in warm gold, he took a deep breath, ready to finally tell her the real truth about where he came from. As the sun dips low, he kicks off his tale with a warm smile, staring at Tia, who's locked in, eyes wide with total rapt attention. He tells you straight up that everyone expects fireworks, but his old life was painfully boring, and yeah, that's basically it. Nothing happened, end of story. Those few words hit Tia like a punch. Her face crumples, tears spill down her cheeks, and she clamps both arms to herself like she can't hold it together. Her sudden tears shock him, and he lunges forward, blurting, "Hey, why are you crying?" As she sobs, she fumbles for the words, trying to finally start her explanation. She tells him it all started when his parents ditched him, once and then again. That gut punch of injustice slams into her, and she blurts that it's just too cruel, because he got reborn hoping his own parents would finally love him, only to be banished up to the mountain instead. He drinks in her fiery words, sinks back with a soft, sad smile, and tells her it's fine, like he's just realized he's nothing but extra weight. His calm acceptance of that brutal fate knocks the wind out of her, and for a second her own tears slip clean out of her mind as she stares at him, stunned beyond disbelief. Her hands, wearing simple bracelets, reach out and carefully clasp his. She yanks him into a crushing hug, tears spilling down her cheeks as she screams that he can't say stuff like that, and that someone as kind and incredible as Noah could never, ever be unnecessary. Her words hit him like a flashbang, dragging up memories of the people who'd planted that same feeling in his chest, his new father and the parents from his past life, and for so long he'd just called it fate and swallowed it like it was inevitable. In her arms, something hits him, this strange, blazing warmth, when he knows all too well it's love. Right after that, she lets go and fires off a fast apology, while he just freezes and stares up at her, eyes blazing wide with pure shock. He heaved for air, muttering that he was seconds from choking out, and as he finally steadied himself, Tia stepped in front of him with iron resolve, saying she'd made her choice. He stares at the ground, totally lost, then looks up like, "So, what did you decide?" And she whips around with a bright, fearless grin, shouting his name. She fires off a jaw-dropping proposal, "Make a contract and you'll be my master," and Noah freezes, his brain scrambling to catch up with every word as she leans in. "Your master is." He stammers, blabbing, "Why would you want to be my pet?" And Tia only smiles softly as she answers that she just likes him, really, really much. In the blink of an eye, she's gone just like that. He whips around, totally lost, and a disembodied voice snaps at him for being careless. She suddenly pops up right beside him, face inches from his, and snaps that with his total lack of awareness, he'd be dropped instantly in a real fight. Then it hits him hard. He didn't even get a second to react with his own skills. He jerks back as she keeps lecturing, saying that even with his brutal power, he's missing the experience to wield it right, and that's exactly why she'll stand between him and the danger she understands so well. He grumbles and finally gives in. Now that everything's decided, she orders him to kick off the contract ritual, stand in front of her and raise his right hand, and with nerves crawling up his spine, he slowly lifts it as she demands. Right as it all happens, a burst of pure light crashes around them both, then vanishes in a blink. When the glow clears, Tia is on her knees before him, and a dark crescent moon mark now sits on the back of his hand. She grins up at him, saying the contract is finished. He locks eyes on the new mark, completely baffled about what it means. Then Tia beams and breaks down its importance, telling him that since he's her master now, he can drop the formal honorifics when he talks to her. He nods in silence, quietly going along with it. A terrified scream rips their moment apart. Nearby in the grass, a disheveled young girl bolts in panic from a monstrous beast with a gaping mouth packed with needle-like teeth, and Ino's attention snaps over instantly, eyes bulging with pure alarm. Ino's world snaps into chaos right in front of her. A terrifying visitor suddenly appears as a ragged young girl sprints through a field, screaming her lungs out, while a giant tusked boar charges nonstop right on her heels. As the beast surges in, a blinding flash detonates in the air. Ino thrusts his glowing hand forward and unleashes a burst of light that snaps the girl's attention as she whirls back in shock. The spell hits like lightning. Before the moment even settles, the boar now is already perfectly cooked, smoke drifting up from its skin, and Gnome leans in, adjusting the fire's intensity like he finally nailed the trick, savoring that mouthwatering smell. Nearby, the girl is sprawled on the ground, panting hard, and when he looks up, he realizes she's absolutely wrecked. He strides up to the girl sprawled on the ground, snaps that he wants to know what she's doing, and orders her to lift her head. So when she looks up and thanks him for saving her, calling him Inosimha, his whole world jolts, because hearing his name out of nowhere makes him wonder how she could possibly know it. She glares at him with tired, dirt-smeared eyes, squares her shoulders, and tells him, "I'm Romaria Cascade." It digs up a brutal past. She's a slave the Wishdar family cast out, and every order she got ended with lashes from Lord Allen over and over again. Inoa and Tia are shocked, with Tia insisting she never heard of the family owning a slave, and Ramarius just shrugs, saying, "Of course you didn't know." What? Alan's eyes snap wide with shock at the name. He blurts it out. Tia beside him gives a quiet yes. A calm, quiet yes gets ripped apart by a wild, manic cackle. Then a disheveled man with a crazed grin stumbles into view, swinging a heavy rod like a weapon. "I'm your father," he roars. Ramaria recoils in terror, and Inoa just freezes, staring back, completely stunned. Once the danger finally dies down, Inoa scoops up the dirt-caked Ramaria in his arms. She protests at full volume, begging him to stop because she'll only get him messy, but he steadies her with a soft command. "Don't strain yourself," he's carrying her straight to safety. Tia tells Ramaria she's going to take a bath, and Ramaria freezes in stunned silence. Then Tia fires back, way too excited that the three of them should bathe together, insisting it'll be way more fun. She shrugs off every problem, but Ramaria can't hide her horror. Tia Fresberg, the tiger woman, wipes away tears and introduces herself with trembling pride. Then Ramaria blurts out that it's an honor to meet her, and when the moment finally shifts back to Tia, she asks in a rush if there's anywhere nearby where Ramaria can rest safely. His question lights her face up instantly. Then Tia grins and declares she knows the perfect place. It spits them out at the mouth of a huge, roomy cave, and the second they step inside, she tells them she practically lives in there, using it to hide from the rain. Nobody even thinks about how pitch dark it's getting, until he whips out magical camping lanterns, slams them onto the cave walls, and the whole place bursts into light. Tia cheers right away, blown away by his talent. He seals the safe place tight, then whips his focus to Ramaria and murmurs, "You must be starving." He tells her to hold on for a second while he throws together something to eat, and the moment she looks up, you can see the shock in her eyes. Surprise snaps into full-blown panic as she yells at Anoa to stop, shaking with fear, begging her to just eat the insects and herbs around the cave, because it's obvious this is how she's been forced to survive. She freezes in disbelief, her brain refusing to accept that Anoa got expelled. Then he confirms it, spilling that he was booted from the Wishstar family too, and with a soft smile he tells her they don't need all that stiff formality between them. As he talks, Tia slips the startled Ramaria into her lap like it's the safest place in the world, gently but firmly urging her to rest, though the girl stalls at first, clearly not used to that kind of comfort. She clamps a hand to her head, drowning in confusion, wondering why all of this is happening to her, while Tia gently strokes her hair and promises she'll be okay. She'll even get to eat something delicious soon. Inoa watches from the side and smirks because she can see it now. She's starting to look less like a warrior and more like a domesticated cat. His mind snaps back to the meal, cook up something nutritious, gentle on the stomach, and built to refill their strength, so with a flick of his wrist, he conjures a pot and the tools to start cooking. He jumps to the chopping board, grabbing the boar meat they just crushed, slicing that pork fast and dropping it into the pot as it starts to bubble and simmer. Before you know it, the pork soup's done, steaming hot, smelling unreal, and somehow packed with magic that brings your strength back, speeds up your natural healing, and even buffs your defenses for a short, glorious window. Tia watches Noah's exquisite cooking in awe as he sets up a tiny table, then slams a steaming bowl down in front of Ramaria and urges her to eat before it cools, only for the girl to stare at the food in total confusion. Tears brim in her eyes as she finally blurts, "Why are you being so kind to me?" Tia just grins and says, "Food hits different when you share it." Ino is stunned. What kind of question is that? To him, helping someone caught in trouble is as normal as breathing. Her words hang in the air, and for a moment, neither of them can even speak. She sat down at the bowl, staring into a brand new universe. Was it really normal to be kind? Could sharing a meal actually make food taste better? And what did any of that mean for a slave like her? This whole world felt alien, like she couldn't wrap her mind around reality at all. Her confusion was forged in a past soaked in cruelty. Down in that underground dungeon, she begged and screamed until her voice died, and nobody came, not once. They tortured her until Alan, her captor, was finally done, and for her, life became a brutal loop of awful rations and exhausted sleep. She didn't feel alive, and she just accepted that as normal. She shoved those dark memories to the back of her mind, then clasped her hands tight, grateful as she sat down for the meal. She shakily raised a spoonful of warm soup to her lips, like one bite might change everything. The flavor hit her like a tidal wave, and her eyes shot wide with stunned disbelief. Taste hit her like lightning, and hot tears of joy streamed down her face, because this was the first time anything she'd eaten ever hit that perfectly, and suddenly she felt like she'd been reborn. Her sudden emotional burst yanked everyone's eyes over to her, and Tia, shocked, blurts out that the food must be seriously amazing, because she's ready to take a bite too, while Anoa just watches her with a soft smile and says he's thrilled his cooking can pull tears of pure joy from her. He grinned and swore he'd make the next one even better for her. His kindness was so pure and unconditional that Ramaria couldn't even speak, tears still streaking her cheeks as she just stared at him, stunned beyond words. The promise of one more meal, one more kindness, shatters Ramaria's silence. Tears of pure joy race down her dirt-streaked cheeks as she bursts into a heartfelt, no-holds-barred cry of acceptance, shouting yes with hope in her voice she's never felt before. As her emotions spill out, a sharp metallic crack slices through the silence. Then the rusted, heavy collar clamped around her neck shatters, finally ending that brutal, constant chafing bondage. Now that Anoa's got a brand new companion riding with them, he straight up declares it's time to refill everyone's energy, then snaps into action with a spell that whips up a sturdy wind partition, splitting the bath area clean in two. With a bold thumbs up, he marks one side for the men and the other for the women. The whole setup turns into a steam-swirling bath oasis. Picture a huge, roaring wooden barrel of hot water sitting on a platform, with a little ladder right there so you can climb in. On the women's side of the screen, Tia beams and yanks Ramaria into the bath, and Ramaria's eyes go wide. She's completely overwhelmed, whispering that it's been ages since she's had even one chance to soak like this. He catches every word, turns scarlet on the spot, and swears they have to bathe separately. Then his panic spikes as he yells at them not to strip yet, because he's still standing right there. Guilt clawed at him after messing with women's undergarments, but he shoved it aside and insisted his intentions were clean. Then he laid out his magical gear. A top-shelf, super-absorbent towel, amphibious underwear that reshapes to fit instantly, and pajamas that secretly regulate your body temperature. Hands the items over, tells them to relax and take their time, and Tia snatches the towel with pure gratitude, gushing about how unbelievably fluffy it is, while Ramaria jumps in to thank him too, and Inoa scrambles to rein them in before the non-stop thanks get out of hand. He's out alone, soaking in his own barrel, and as the water chills his worries, he starts replaying his past, no free time, just endless video watching for scraps of peace. Then it hits him. In this new world, he never thought he'd actually love something this simple as a barrel bath. That calm lasts half a heartbeat, then a piercing scream tears through the air, and he snaps upright in the water, eyes blazing with panic as he blurts out, "Where is that sound coming from?" He snaps to the scream and charges straight for the partition. "Are you two okay?" He shouts, gripping the wooden barrier like it's the only thing holding him steady. Beneath the full moon, the night sits perfectly still, like the world is holding its breath. But the calm shatters the moment he vaults the partition, lands hard on the other side, and whips around to hunt down what's causing the trouble. His eyes lock onto Tia and Ramaria in the barrel bath, and when Tia glances up, relief hits her face. "I know her," he starts, and she blurts it out. The moment he hits the site, it blasts him back with a brutal splash. Then one more razor-sharp cry tears through the air. Calls out Ramaria, and she jerks her head up, flustered, apologetic. "Oh, sorry," she blurts, "I got carried away." Her voice snaps through the air like it's crystal clear. Then Ino's face twists from alarm to sudden realization, and he insists, "No, I'm the one who should apologize." Tia tells Ramaria what set off the outburst, because the second she stepped into that water, every single wound vanished in an instant, and then she flat out guesses it has to be Inoa's magic, leaving Ramaria staring at her own healed skin like it's a miracle she can't believe. By overhearing their talk, Inoa snaps the puzzle together. "So that's why your wounds vanished," he murmurs, and the realization hits like a wave on his face. Right, it has to be. Overcome by the miracle, Ramario breaks into tears of pure relief, and through those tears, she pours out her gratitude, admitting she'd long since written off any chance her wounds would ever heal. Noah reclined in his own bath, flashed her a soft smile, waved off her gratitude, and said straight up that only her recovery mattered. Then his mind drifted to how his father once brushed off his camp's skill as useless, and now he finally understood. Getting it was the best move he could have made. Tia beams with pure joy and cheers for Ramaria, then whips around to tell Inoa how incredible he is for crafting a healing bath. Finally, with one last tear wiped away, Ramaria nods along, smiling like a weight has been lifted. Excitement takes over, and Tia starts running her fingers over Ramaria's freshly healed skin and hair, gasping at how soft and fluffy it all feels. Then she spots the metal collar, asks if it's bothering her, and even offers to take it off, snapping Ramaria into a startled cry. She keeps inspecting, gushing that Ramaria's chest feels soft and her hair gleams, and the moment Ramaria realizes what's happening, she's so flustered she begs the inspector to stop. Feeling totally out of place in the chaos, he darts away, blurts out an apology for the disruption, and now declares he's heading back to his own bath, promising he'll catch up with them later. Peace drops in like a warm spell as all three sink into the magical water, and Ramaria, Inoa, and Tia glow with pure bliss, while Tia lets out this dreamy sigh like, "Wow, this feels incredible." Inoa finally starts to relax, then a discovery yanks him out of it as the bath's effects appear like a glowing report, proving it can wipe out curses, melt away fatigue, refill vitality, and even regrow skin and hair. He blurts out in total shock when he feels his own exhaustion drain away, realizing his creation's power is the real deal. He slips away to a quiet stretch of shoreline, locks onto the water, and declares it the perfect spot to build his next masterpiece. With a brutal thud, a massive wooden barrel slammed into existence right in front of him, straight out of thin air. He cracks the door open and leans in, then his face lights up like he just struck gold. He can't wrap his head around summoning something this luxurious, the kind of item that would cost a fortune. Inside, the rich, comforting scent of cypress flooded the air, and he let out a deep, satisfied sigh. Steam billows up as the water hits the hot stones, and he drops onto the bench, letting the brutal heat wrap him from head to toe. After soaking up every bit of that warmth, a huge, blissful smile lights up his face. He knows exactly what's next to finish this feeling. He summons a cold water bath, pokes the temperature with his foot, then rockets into it, letting out a sharp gasp as the icy chill hits hard. With his routine finally done, he pops into existence on a comfy bench and flops down like he owns the moment, totally at peace. He let out a satisfied sigh, soaking up the sweet, total calm that followed the sound out. When he finally let his guard down, his thoughts snapped back to the chaos. His skills got judged, he got exiled, he met Tia, he battled the terrifying cockatrice, and he even hauled Rumeria to safety. Even after everything, a strange calm finally washed over him, like peace found its way into his bones, and he swore that starting tomorrow, he'd keep living, but this time free and steady. He meant to figure out his next move, but when he saw his clothes still hanging to dry, he realized, too late, that the day was already slipping away. Ramiria glanced around and realized the sky had gone totally dark, so she urged them to map out their plans for tomorrow, and Tia lit up instantly, agreeing with full excitement. Once the call was made, Inoa dropped in extra gear, starting with a magic tent and a weather expert who showed up on the dot, promising full protection from the elements and a steady indoor temperature no matter what the world threw at them. Then came the Eversleep sleeping bag, racking up a 50% boost to stamina and mana recovery, with the bonus of mending status ailments too. Inside, Tia was absolutely thrilled with the setup. She went on and on about how the sleeping bag looked extra fluffy and comfy, and how the tent was roomy, warm, and cozy as hell. Inside the cozy tent, Inoa beamed, wishing everyone a good night, and the others chimed right back. Then the whole crew finally drifted off to sleep. He sprawls in a magical sleeping bag, already plotting upgrades for their new base, while Tia drifts off dreaming about tomorrow's food. Meanwhile, Remeria sleeps like a stone, letting out soft little breaths. Peace settles in for one last calm night, then morning crashes in hard. Outside their camp, Inoa and Ramiria sit by a table they've set up, and right on cue Tia shows up, impatiently pouting as she calls out to Inoa, demanding to know if the food's ready yet. With the pot simmering over the flames, Dread slams into him. He whirls around, face blazing with urgency, and shouts for Ramiria and Tia to get to his side right now. Tia jerks her gaze up, shocked by the command. His warning hits at the perfect moment. Then a colossal impact rips through their campsite, shattering the table and chairs in a thunderous burst of dust and wreckage, and as everything erupts, Inoa dives over Ramiria, yanking her behind him and shielding her from the blast. In the seconds after it all went down, dust still roared through the air. Then he snapped to the girl he shielded, demanding to know if she was hurt. Tia, right there beside them, says they're both totally fine. Their eyes snap to the wreckage's maker. A hulking red dragon towers over everything, swallowing the horizon with its sheer size. As Ino stares in disbelief, Tia's face tightens, and she mutters that she remembers it's been ages. On a barren, jagged peak, a colossal red dragon slams down like thunder, its massive leathery wings beating the air while a brutal crown of blackhorns locks around its menacing reptilian head. A deep growl rips through its chest as it sharpens its gaze, then the intelligent eye surveys everything. With the bees crawling up below, Inoa Wishtal's face tightens fast. He shouts Erasmus's name and demands to know why the dragon showed up in front of them. The dragon roars back, snapping its jaws full of razor teeth. Then it shuts him down, growling that the real question isn't his demand, it's why some stranger is camped in its territory. His eyes blow wide with shock when he realizes, oh no, he's staring down a gigantic dragon, and he scrambles to calm things down, insisting he's just resting and that mountains don't belong to anyone. Tia, right at his side, swats his logic away like it's pure nonsense. He shoots a quick glance at his companion, and doubt sparks in his chest. Can Tia truly take down a monster that big? So he steels himself and activates his identify skill to find out. Then skill flips the reveal. T is rank AAA. Inao's jaw drops because one rank above means terrifying power, and his mind instantly snaps to the dragon, scrambling to guess what rank it's rocking. Next, it flashes the dragon's info: Erasmus, an evil beast, and Alan Wishto is its master, and the wild part, its rank is just C. Then the dragon rumbles again with a low, hateful growl. Noah's stares froze him in place. When he realized that this terrifying beast is only rank C, his mouth went dry and his mind scrambled. He stared at his identify skill results and his brain buckled with confusion, because the dragon's master was a Wishdao and it was his own father. That didn't add up at all. Even worse, for all that massive size and crushing strength, the creature was only rank C, and if Tia really was AAA, then she should have smashed it with zero trouble. I tried to wrap my head around it, and then boom, the real reason behind the dragon's rage hit me, and it was terrifyingly clear. In the distance, Lord Alan and a maid stood frozen with pure panic, crushed under the beast's brutal presence. From where Tia stood, she watched everything unfold, her face in shadow, her thoughts locked down. Then, after a beat of silent staring, she breathed, "I see her." That calm understanding snapped into pure fury in an instant. Her hair whipped around as power crackled in the air, and now she finally got the dragon's plan. Those two terrified humans weren't just nearby, they were the targets. Dragon Erasmus rumbled as he confirmed her discovery, telling everyone the two were being offered up, and when Inoa overheard it, cold dread shot down his spine. What if the beast decided to swallow them whole? Ramarian caught his horrified face and softly pushed him to breathe, her own fear shaking right through her voice. He spun to face her, eyes blazing with fierce, protective resolve. and when he locked onto the tearful girl, he swore, no matter what, that nothing like that would ever happen to her. Across the blasted wasteland, Lord Alan tried to make sense of the colossal beast's words, but he hesitated and doubted what the dragon meant by that term of offering, while the dragon looked just as baffled by the same word. The dragon sneered at the newcomer, doubting that this scrawny stray cat even had the nerve to stand up to him, while Tia crouched hard, sparks of blue energy crackling across her, eyes burning as she let the truth hit. She wasn't giving up those two captives without a fight. Then he bursts forward like lightning, white and blue light tearing across the air straight at the dragon. Her target planted his feet on the cliff's edge, jaw dropped, roaring back like he'd dare the whole world to come closer. In a blink, she slammed into range, fist cocked back like a cannon about to unleash a brutal hit. As the impossibly fast clash detonated before their eyes, Ramiria shouted his name in panic, while Anoa stayed ice calm, telling everyone, "Don't worry." He trusted Ramiria with his whole heart that she'd be fine. His confidence was dead on. When the dragon's tail slammed into the ground and shattered the rock beneath them, Tia shot into the air instantly, flipping cleanly out of danger. The dragon locked eyes with shock, thinking, how did I miss from right there? Inoa's legs then exploded with raw power, and it was impossible to look away. She was built to destroy. Up above airborne Tia, the dragon snapped that she wouldn't be able to dodge his strike in the sky, and he swore he'd turn her into ashes. The beast froze when she shot forward in midair, like she'd launched herself off the wind itself. Then Tia ripped into the sky with a furious scream, burst into her true dragon form, and blasted a colossal beam that swallowed the red dragon whole. She fires off her attack with total confidence, sure he'll never claw his way to the upper hand in the air, until her blast slams right into his huge, dropping claw. The hit blasts shockwaves through the air as she digs in against the crushing grip of his claw. Then the ground explodes into rubble under the pressure while Erasmus screams, swearing he'll flatten her. Right in the middle of a life-or-death brawl, her whole head snaps into focus. She erupts in frustration, yelling that she's starving so badly she can't unleash her full power, and the red dragon just freezes, staring at her like he can't believe what he's hearing. Her inner voice keeps pounding, and suddenly the truth clicks. Her whole fight boils down to one mistake. She didn't eat breakfast, and now she's stuck watching herself lose. Erasmus is totally thrown by how she makes that sound like the whole reason, while Anoa, standing back, just exhales and goes, "Yep, that's Tia for you." He's been scratching his head over why Tia, higher rank and all, gets steamrolled, but Erasmus tunes out her weird remarks and slams the verdict, game over. Tia laughs it off, calls it not a game at all, and needles him. You seriously can't see you're doomed, especially when you're starving. Leaving Anoa totally lost. Her mockery lit a fuse in the red dragon, his patience snapped, power surged through his body, and crackling energy whipped around him as his fury hit its absolute peak. He rips the truth wide open about their power. Only now does he reveal he's been holding back with just one massive paw. Then, eyes blazing, he roars at her to die and slams his other claw down across the battlefield, while Anoa and Ramiria on the sidelines scream her name in pure terror. The impact slams down with catastrophic power, pulverizing the earth beneath it, and the red dragon even pauses, thinking he might have gone too hard, before erupting into a victorious laugh. Then the dust and shadows part and Tia's voice cuts through. She's sorry he got to think, just for a second, that he'd actually won. She didn't even flinch, just stood there, calm as the dragon's sputtering rage roared around her, while Erasmus, still crackling with leftover power, gawked in pure disbelief and demanded how she was still standing, and then the answer. Thanks to the bond she shared with Anoa, Tia flashed a radiant grin and crushed the flustered young lord in a tight hug, swearing her strength came from that connection, while Anoa, mortified, squirmed and begged, "Let me go." Erasmus, the great red dragon, sneered at the idea that some invisible bond could have saved the children from his claws, brushing it off with pure contempt. Meanwhile, Inoa faced Tia and demanded to know if she'd really signed a submission contract with some ordinary human, only for her to light up with delight and gush that being raised by a human was amazing because food just showed up by itself. Then she teased him, playfully calling out the way he said, "raised." They never spelled out what their bond really meant, just that it was a brutal special submission contract with two big rules. The servant can't lift a finger to attack their master, and the master can yank the servant to them from anywhere just by shouting their name. With that new understanding burning in his head, Inoa snapped his gaze back to the looming monster and stared it down. Then he turned to Erasmus and demanded the truth. Did he sign a contract with Lord Alan too? The full truth hit like a nightmare. Lord Alan showed up in a horrifying vision, smug as ever, bragging about the deal. In return for letting Erasmus control the mountain's riches, Alan agreed to hand the dragon any kids who'd outlived their usefulness, including Inoa and Ramiria. Everything snapped into focus for Inoa. Alan didn't just kill them, he tossed the pieces aside on purpose so the dragon could swallow them whole, and Erasmus sealed the horror with a flick of his tongue, savoring how delicious the soft human children tasted. The dragon kept roaring out its monstrous monologue, soaking up every last memory of the terror it planted, then bragged that the screams it wrung out while it tore them apart gave it a sick, unmatched kind of pleasure, while Inoa, Tia, and Ramaria's faces twisted in pure horror and disgust. Righteous fury burst in Tia's voice as she screamed Noah's name, and right in front of them the colossal dragon unfurled its wings, spitting a venomous declaration that it would never forgive them for daring to defy their faith. When the colossal beast finally loomed over them, Tia's eyes went huge with panic. She whipped her gaze to the boy beside her and choked out his name, voice shaking. He didn't flinch for a second. The dragon Erasmus stared down at him, growling with pure contempt, snorting at the kid's defiance and sneering at the brat who dared stand before it. Rage surged as the boy held that unwavering stare. How dare you look at me like that? O sat there, seething because he wasn't scared one bit, and still, O's face stayed set and stubborn, his eyes blazing with cold, unshakable determination. The dragon snapped that it wouldn't waste energy on this fight, muttered that its appetite was suddenly gone, and promised new offerings would show up soon. Then it twisted its huge body toward the little group and geared up to finish them. With a furious roar, it swore it would torch every last one of them and the whole area. Then it unleashed a roaring wave of fire. As the flames crashed forward, Inoa refused to back down, snapping a shimmering sphere of protective magic into place to stop the blast dead in its tracks. Right in front of a barrier, Tia erupted in panic, blurted, "What do we do? Should we run?" While Inoa stayed ice calm. "No," he said, "I've got an idea." He blurted out Ramaria's name and ordered her to come, right now, and without a second thought she sprinted toward the group. The dragon let out a mocking scoff, snarling that huddling together would just seal their doom, and as Inoa started shaping a roaring vortex of power, disaster hung in the air. Then he hurled the spell, whoosh, and a brutal wall of infernal fire exploded outward, swallowing the whole landscape in a blinding, no-mercy torrent. When the crushing heat finally eases off, thick smoke surges over the burned, empty land, leaving behind the brutal wreckage of that infernal fire. Devastation comes into view, a massive, smoking crater ripped into the earth, and at its rim, Erasmus the dragon leans over the edge, glaring down into the abyss like he's finally won. He chuckled to himself, smug as ever, convinced he'd crushed them all. "This is what you get when you dare to challenge me," he thought, and then his grin vanished because his eyes snapped wide in pure, stunned disbelief. Shock hits him as it comes from the crater's edge. Inoa, Tia, and Ramaria are totally fine, hiding under a massive, dark blanket, while Erasmus just gapes, stunned there still breathing. Tia snaps that they have to take him down, and Inoa solidly backs her up. The dragon locked onto him, demanding to know who the boy really was, while beside Inoha, Ramaria couldn't believe he'd actually blocked a strike that strong, and Inoha admitted he was shocked by his own powers too. Then his focus snapped to Tia, gripping a huge rack of pork rips, and he demanded what skill she had, only for her to stare back baffled and say it was time for their counterattack. Inoa blurted out his hunch to Ramaria. "No, the dragon can't breathe fire." Then Ramaria went wide-eyed with disbelief while Erasmus just happened to overhear it, and his face snapped into flustered shock. Then he dug into his reasoning. After the dragon blasted its fire breath the first time, it had chances to do it again, but it never did, and somehow Inoa decided it just can't fire that attack on repeat. He tossed out his deduction, and right away Ramaria lit up with praise for his insane insight. Then Tia caught up and instantly agreed. That massive flame attack had to have burned the dragon's power down hard. With a smug grin, she snapped her focus onto the dragon and dared him, asking if he really thought he could take down the sacred beast after all that recovery. Erasmus shot back a furious glare, saying nothing. The great dragon snapped its wings and blasted into the sky, choosing escape instead of a fight. Tia shouted in pure frustration as Erasmus vanished overhead, and the beast silently swore it would never forget the humiliation of this day. As the dragon shrank into a tiny dot in the sky, Inoa panicked and begged herself to find a way to stop him. Tia snapped the truth right away. She couldn't possibly catch him, and Ramaria sealed the blow by saying he was already way past their reach. Right when he brushed them off like useless little ants, a projectile tore through the sky and slammed into him with a jolt he didn't see coming, making the dragon scream in pain and promise he'd make them remember it. A sudden twist slammed the group into stunned silence, and Inoa could only blurt out his confusion while Ramaria jabbed toward the forest. An arrow had ripped out from the trees. His gaze snapped to the woods, catching a young girl with elven ears clutching a bow, and as he demanded who she was, tears poured from her face while she swore savage vengeance on the dragon that burned her village. As the chaos rages, Inao spots a newcomer, an elf girl with a massive bow yanked tight, and his gut asks who is she and did she come to save them. Her arms shake from the effort, and she swears she'll never forgive her target. Then she releases a brutal, power-packed shot. Arrow snaps true, smashing into the red dragon and yanking a savage, pained roar from its throat. Then Inoa clocks the truth. They've stalled it for now, but this pause won't last. Watch the archer keep hammering her shots from afar while Ramaria yells his name, because he knows he has to lock in a plan fast, before that mysterious elf runs dry. Mariah blurts out a desperate plan: what if I act as bait? And Ino shuts it down instantly as way too dangerous, but her words spark a click in his mind. Bait, a hook, that's it. He summons a legendary fishing rod, Grounder, an outrageous weapon with an auto-winding reel that can haul through thousands of tons and a hook so ruthless prey can never slip away, and with that in hand, his resolve snaps into place. He's going after a dragon. He dug his feet into the ground, hauled the rod back, and with a fierce battle cry, hurled the line with everything he had. It rockets forward, snags the dragon, and Anao erupts, screaming that he took the bait. Then the beast stares down, baffled by the sudden yank, while Anao's mind races, trying to figure out what to do next. He races himself, forcing the rod to bow under brutal pressure, because it's heavy as hell, and the dragon, snared tight, can't wriggle free, thrashing against the hooks with a grip that won't budge. Straining under the crushing weight, he clenches his jaw and roars her name, Tia, and the white-haired tiger woman whips around, eyes blazing with shock at his sudden cry. His whole plan clicks into place the second he screams for her to use the fishing line as a path. Watch it snap taut across the sky, a shimmering thread stretching straight to the far-off silhouette of the dragon thrashing and fighting to break free. Baring his teeth, he vows he won't let go. He'll plant himself and hold the line steady until Tia can hit her target, and the moment she gets it, a fierce understanding lights up her face. As Ramario keeps straining, he charges up beside him and grabs the rod alongside him, and when she offers her help, her strength surges in to power them through. Fueled by their push, the elf archer dives in too, bracing herself behind Ramaria and hauling with everything she's got, and Ino, seeing the extra strength, bursts out loud with his thanks. The three of them huddle up and face the dragon as one, digging their heels into the jagged rock and refusing to budge against its crushing power. With the path finally secured, Tia launches into a sprint along the magical line, swearing that Inoa and everyone's hard work won't be wasted, while the dragon, yanked and humiliated, bellows in disbelief and raw fury, snarling at how any mere humans could possibly pull it. As he shouts her name one last time, blue crackling energy surges over Tia. She unleashes her power, roaring the sacred technique's name, Heavenly Thunder Claw. Your lightning/claw crashes into the dragon, blasting its body with raw power. Then the sacred technique rips through it as the beast shrieks one last, gut-wrenching roar. The impact detonates into a massive, earth-shaking explosion, blinding light and roaring energy blasting out the moment everything collides. When the dust finally clears, that massive dragon drops crushed and defeated, and on its still body, Ramaria and the elf archer burst into celebration, shouting for their master. Below, Tia flashes a bright victory sign, and Inoa can only smirk at how perfectly she predicted it. He pauses and a puzzle slams into his mind. Tia was wiped out and skipped breakfast, so she shouldn't have had any status buffs, yet somehow she still stood up to Erasmus like nothing was wrong, and he can't make sense of it. Then a memory hits him, barrel sauna, and he shoots straight to the status log, eyes going wide with pure disbelief. That sauna didn't just help, it handed out an alignment buff that cranked all her core stats by a staggering 300 points. He suddenly realizes the buff he'd seen before was just small potatoes, mere 10 to 30. This was a whole different universe. His shock gets yanked apart when he spots the elf archer blubbering like the tears won't stop. He whips around, stunned, and blurts out if she's crying, while Tia teases, wondering if somehow this is all his fault. With tears streaming, she blurts out that she's overwhelmed with gratitude, insisting that without their help she'd never have beaten the beast. So when Inoa hears it all, she's flustered into stammering out an apology and a thank you of her own. Her heartfelt words hit him like a lightning strike. He freezes, and a tangled swirl of emotions flashes across his face as he finally tries to process what just happened. She slid her hand onto Elf Archer's shoulder and thanked her with all her heart, then met her eyes, her face turning gentle as she confessed she felt the exact same way. Right when it felt like everything would click, Ramaria went pale with embarrassment, snatched by the memory of hugging Inoa, and then she started apologizing nonstop. Tia snapped her focus back to the Elf Archer, practically gushing about how deadly her long-range shots were. And Inoa jumped in too, saying that if she hadn't stopped Erasmus, the dragon would have absolutely slipped away. Right as the elf archer opened her mouth to quiz Inoa, Inoa's stomach let out a brutal growl, and before she could finish, Tia burst into laughter, cheerfully waving it off and saying, "Forget the details, what matters is we eat." Inoa grinned and agreed they should all grab food together. Their choice was made, then every one of them stared down at the massive dragon's dead body, and just like that, a fresh plan snapped into place. They were going to eat the beast. Inside a stone fortress, a ruthless military commander towers over a battered woman who's forced to her knees, snapping his baton up like a weapon as rage burns across his face. He snarls that he needs to know where her daughter is, and she's bloodied, wrecked, and fighting for breath, but she won't break. Nearby, a group of captive elves are shoved to their knees, eyes wide with fear, yet their rage simmers under the surface. He shot them a contempt-filled look, muttered that they were idiots, then snapped around and walked off. Rage flares in his chest as he remembers how Erasmus, his dragon, raised the whole elven village only for his main target to slip away. He grumbles that with Erasmus around, he can still pull in cash, but this loss still bites hard. Then he snaps his gaze to the captive woman, silently asking himself if she'll finally crack or keep her mouth shut. A cruel smirk tugs at his lips as he plots his next strike, savoring the question of where to torch the dragon down to the last ember. A totally different snowy world greets them. Tia leans in, eyes wide as she watches skewers of meat hiss and sizzle on the grill, and she hypes Erasmus for roasting them so perfectly. Then she spots it right away. The meat still needs a few more minutes before it's truly cooked through. Noah heads straight to the grill, flipping the skewers over the blazing coals, laughing as he tells Tia, since she's a tiger, she could totally chomp it raw if she wanted. He whips around to face the quiet elf archer standing right there, and with a gentle smile he asks her name, but all she can manage is a shaky, hesitant sound. At last her voice turns gentle as she cups a gloved hand to her chin and tells them, "I'm Fairy." A young woman with dark hair, hanging with her group, stares at her with eyes stretched wide, pure curiosity. The dark-haired woman's face lights up in a dazzling grin as she tells Fairy Sama how thrilled she is to finally meet her, and Fairy, caught off guard by all that formal energy, answers with a shy, "Nice to meet you too." Her new acquaintance slips his hand into hers, and the moment feels warm, kind, and real. The woman presses her for a straight answer, asking if Fairy truly comes from the eastern elven tribe of Kairos, and Fairy nods, her face turning grim as she admits it's the first time she's ever left her village. Her expression tightens as she drops the brutal truth for why she's leaving. She says her village was burned down by the dragon that's been traveling with him, and the memory of Kairos swallowed by flames just 3 days ago still hits her like a punch. Her memory snaps into focus, yanking her straight back to that attack. An elven knight in full armor slammed the door shut, roared that they were under attack, and ordered the princess to flee through the back gate, while a younger fairy begged to fight beside her, and the knight cut her down with a cold, firm no. Kneeling before her, Fred, the knight whom the fairy swore by, made it clear. Her duty was simple, protect the princess's life no matter what. Then she pressed a tiny pouch into the fairy's hands, told her to wait by the forest lake, and vowed they'd flush the intruder out and come for her right after. As Fairy sprinted through the dark woods, she whipped around and saw Fred refusing to back down. Then a horrifying roar ripped through the air from the battlefield, freezing her on the spot as her eyes bulged with terror at a fight she couldn't even see. Her mind replayed the disaster on loop. An earth-shattering blast of flame and choking smoke tore open the heart of her village, swallowing everything in its path. As the dragons tore off into the sky, indecision pinned her in place. She knew she had help coming, but she also knew dashing in would only slow Fred down, turning her into dead weight. So she forced herself to stay calm, land on the cover of night, and waited. But waiting only sank her deeper into despair, and later, beneath a rain-soaked, pitch-black sky, she curled up in the hollow of a massive tree and sobbed for everyone she'd ever lost. Her grief got yanked to a halt the moment a pair of heel boots stomped in. She looked up at the smoldering campfire, declared herself the princess of Kairos, and with tears pouring down her face, swore she'd hunt down the enemies who'd hurt her people. With her tale finally done, the friendly dark-haired girl leaned in and told Anoa how she'd stumbled on the elven princess. She'd been hunting that dragon, then bam, she found a fairy battling it alone. He clenched up and listened, grim truth crashing in. If Tia had even struggled against the dragon, then the elves Erasmus attacked were almost certainly already dead. But the girl spun to Fairy with a calm, reassuring smile, slamming his conclusion right out the window. She said his name and insisted, straight up, that her companions were still alive. The elf princess could only choke out a stunned, disbelieving gasp, while Tia leaned in beside her, mulling over the claim like, wait, could that really be possible? Tia wonders if Dragon Erasmus is playing Alan's strings. Maybe that's why he snatched the elves to sell them, since elves are prized for their beauty and fetch a fortune. She jumps on the theory and, with dark-haired intensity, remembers her own time in captivity. How, on the way to the mountain, she swears she spotted beautiful, pointed-eared folk mixed in with the prisoners. This new testimony slams the resolve in their chests. Tia snaps that they'll save the elves and make sure Alan gets what he deserves, and Anoa instantly throws his support behind her, promising to help with the rescue, while hopeful, the dark-haired girl, blurts out in shock and hope that this means they all have to still be alive. Crushed by how fast and how hard everyone showed up for her, Fairy's eyes brim with tears, and she pours out heartfelt thanks to every single person who stepped in to help. Seeing how shattered she is, Inao decides they can't fall apart here. He calls for a regroup, telling everyone to pull themselves together, and then he drops a huge platter of fresh, steaming dark dragon maiden skewers in front of them. Mia snatches a skewer with zero hesitation, takes one bite, and her eyes pop wide as she blurts out that it's absolutely delicious. A reaction sparks everyone to dig in, and Fairy and the dark-haired girl lock eyes in total shock, because the food is insanely tasty. Noah digs in too, and his eyes widen because this flavor hits him like nothing he's ever tasted. He studies the properties of the evil dragon meat skewer and sees it blasting vitality, attack, defense, fire resistance, and even HP regeneration, while cutting stamina drain, and he just nods like, yeah, this is seriously good.
What?
He lays it out. Nobody beats the evil dragon meat's cost-benefit punch. Last time, the boost hit the meal as a whole, but this time, every single skewer you bite into hammers you with its powerful effects. He hoists a massive chunk of cooked meat and declares, if we're going up against Alan, we've got to stuff ourselves, eat everything we can, and bulk up for the fight coming next. Right as he decides to get things started, a notification snaps across his vision. His own skill just hit level 2, and he freezes, stammering, then bursts out in total disbelief. His brain spins at how wild this is, how a skill that was already insanely powerful could somehow level up even more. Staring at the round mark on the back of his hand, he feels a new, terrifying idea click into place. Then horror hits as he realizes, with shaking shock, he might be able to evolve his own skill. While everyone was chowing down at the barbecue, Tia, cute in her bouncy barrier outfit and waving skewers, caught Inoa staring off with a weird, distant look, so she asked what was wrong. Then his face snapped into ruthless focus, and he barked at the girls to back off, not to move, like something dangerous was about to go down. He slaps his hands together and locks in, eyes focused. While the manifestation drags on a little longer than he likes, he can't help but wonder if the object's complicated design is the reason. With a sudden flash of materialization, a massive wooden cabin pops into existence right in front of them, revealed as a top-tier camping item. He's frozen in place, eyes bulging with pure disbelief, yelling that he just built an entire house. From up on the fresh roof, Ramaria shouts that Inoa is amazing, and Inoa's fairy friend just nods like, with power like that, you could rebuild Kairos right now. Even Inoa admits he's blown away because yeah, that ability is straight up incredible. They finally drop onto the snowy ground, and Inoa shouts for everyone to head inside the cabin. Every girl bursts out, yes, without hesitation. They step in and bam, an enormous, fully furnished modern living room and kitchen hits them, and everyone just freezes, stunned. They spot every little thing, the rugged wood stove, the massive windows that open up the view, and that tall, airy ceiling with a spinning fan up top. Stares and wide-eyed wonder hit him at once, because this cabin was exactly what he'd dreamed of, down to every tiny detail, built with obsessive care. As he soaks it all in, his crew dives into the interior. Tia swings open a huge box and jolts back like it's ice inside, screaming how freezing it is. Fairy, on instant alert, raises her bow and barks at everyone to back off, convinced it's an ice attribute monster, but Inoa snaps in right away, telling her it's not. He leans in and the cabin stuns him, top-tier appliances everywhere, an induction stove, a refrigerator, a microwave, even an oven. He's completely dumbfounded, thinking, where on earth do they get the electricity to power all this? Tia blurts open yet another door with pure excitement, and she can't stop puzzling over what this new room is even meant to be. The bathroom is huge and grand, with 2 massive wooden tubs and a cold stone floor underfoot. The moment they step beside the bathroom tub, excitement sparks in the girls. Tia blurts that it's amazing and lunges to get in, while Ramaria swears the freshwood smell is so calming. Fairy, still buzzing from their earlier fight, insists they should all bathe together. Then, right when Tia starts to undress, Inoa snaps, "Hold it," and tells them the tub's not ready because he hasn't poured the water yet. He admits that in the end that wooden cabin is still just a cabin, so the water spilling out is nothing special, just plain tap water, and he's left staring at the wall like, how the heck does plumbing even work in here? I have zero idea what principle makes it possible. This wild, advanced build is the total opposite of what you'd need for a basic item. Think a simple magic steam drum bath oasis, made from nothing but a few chisels, wood, rope, and a plain metal drum. He dove into the build of his newest creation, starting by carving a notch into a block of wood, then slipping a tiny steam oasis inside a huge drum and locking it in place with. And just like that, the steaming hot spring setup is done. When the drum dumps hot water into the big basin, his companions stare in pure awe, while Inoa clocks the whole thing and thinks, this looks like industrial wastewater. Still, even so, it's undeniably impressive. He decides to carve up another piece of wood with his chisel, then plans to slap a tiger head right on top of the drum so Tia can see it, but the finished art horrifies her. It looks like a goofy caricature of her tiger form spewing water, and she blurts that it looks like it's puking transparent Joe. Not everyone reacts the same. Fairy thinks the tiger face is adorable, but Ramaria shoots that idea down. When Anoa hears them bicker, she can't help but wonder if this design really flopped. And even after her big outburst, Tia still looks genuinely happy. After they shove the whole design debate aside, Tia lights up and declares it's fine. Then she announces it's time to get in and starts undressing right in front of Anao, shocking him. Moments later, Tia, Ramaria, and Fairy kick back together in the steaming new hot spring, while that tiger headspout glares from the edge of the bath. Fresh and recharged, the girls run into Anoa again, and Ramaria rushes to apologize for dragging him into it, only for him to wave it off and say it's no big deal. Fairy practically beams, gushing that the bath felt incredible, and even turned her damaged hair soft and silky again. Later, while they're finally catching their breath, Inao casually asks the girls if they're okay, then teases that they must have made a ton of noise in the bath. Off-screen, they burst into laughter and swear nothing happened. Inside, Fairy spilled everything that happened in the bath, how Tia suddenly snapped into a tiger to copy the wooden spout, then blasted them with scorching water. Ramaria chimed in that this was the first time either of them had seen a transformation like that, and they were both totally stunned. Still in tiger form, Tia stared at them from the water and thought, clear as day, the girls looked delicious. Afterward, Tia, back in her humanoid form, grinned and told Ano he should have come along, bragging that it was awesome watching all those wild new faces from Fairy and Ramaria, while Ano, peeking from behind the wall, flat out refused for. Then her mind snapped back to the other structure she'd spotted. Once she was dressed, she pressed Inoa about why the hot room and that cold water tub existed, and the question hit him like a curveball. He said it was just one of his hobbies, but then it hit him. No way any of them would even know what that sound was. His hesitation hit dead silence. Fairy, Ramaria, and Tia just stared him down, blank-faced, like they couldn't even process what he was saying. Their confusion finally snapped when one of them blurted, "Is this some kind of self-torture?" And that question sent Ino bolting away. The misunderstanding only got worse. Tia decided Ino must somehow love suffering, and that idea freaked her out. Then Fairy, cheeks burning, blurted that if Ino truly wanted it, she could have helped, and Ino snapped back at them like, "No way, you're totally wrong." What? His protests crashed and burned. Defeated to the bone, he sank into a long, exhausted sigh. He sank into the steaming bath and realized the girls had totally labeled him a weird creeper, so to fix it, he swore that next time he'd make all three of them hear just how amazing that sound really is. Fresh air and fresh quiet finally gave way, and he stepped out to find Tia awake on the couch, stretching like she was perfectly fine, telling him how great it felt before he realized everyone else was gone, so he blurted out, "Where'd Fairy and Ramario go?" What? He told her the other two had basically collapsed and fallen asleep from pure exhaustion, so he'd scooped them up and tucked them into bed. Tia listened, eyes on him, while the quiet sight of Fairy and Ramaria dozing peacefully proved every word. Her face flickered as she demanded to know why he was even listening to Farid. Inwa just blinked at the confusion, said he understood, and thanked her. Then Tia curled up with her knees hugged tight, eyes dropping to the floor, swallowed by a heavy, silent sadness. He caught her sudden mood change and blurted, "What's wrong?" Tia snapped her gaze up, eyes wide as the truth hit her, sharp, painful, unavoidable, then told him something had returned, a memory that was haunting her again. The memory slammed back into place, and pure shock hit Tia's face as she finally confessed the brutal truth. Her mom had been sealed away by the Demon King. Noah locks eyes with Tia, and right away he spots the sorrow weighing her down, so he leans in and asks gently if the Demon King sealed her mother away, like that question finally tugs on the feelings she's been swallowing in silence. The Demon King's presence sparks Noah's memories. Camilla told him this monster king is only born once every 100 years, an ancient, terrifying power that's. As the memory crashes back, Tia blurts out what she feared all along. Her mother was just a pesky problem to the Demon King because she kept shielding the humans. Inoa swallows hard, then demands the question on everyone's mind. If that's true, why was she sealed away? She presses on, demanding to know where the seal is, and why Tia isn't already rushing to save her. So Tia lowers her voice and admits she knows exactly, and yeah, she's even thought about rescuing her. His eyes blow wide with disbelief. There's no way she could know the location and still do nothing. Tia finally answers she can't keep dodging, and she spills the truth for her silence. The spot where a mother gets sealed is called the Abyss Dungeon, a terrifying place guarded by huge, chained doors that pulse with dark power. He repeats the name, frozen in shock, and when Tia looks down, her voice drops with defeat as she admits it's the hardest dungeon of all, one nobody has ever beaten. He stared at the screen, eyes bulging as it finally clicked. This world really had dungeons. He spun toward Tia, his face flipping from shock to something totally different, and started apologizing, telling her the dungeon idea was. He was absolutely buzzing with excitement. Ever since his reincarnation, all he'd ever known was the mansion and the nearby mountain, and now he was finally staring at the chance to feel something that was truly, wildly otherworldly, and it was this. His serious tone sliced right through the excitement, and she warned him that the Abyss Dungeon's monsters were brutally strong, but the real nightmare was the dungeon itself, packed with traps that could wreck even the toughest fighters. She kept going, laying out the nightmare fuel, relentless calamities that hammer adventurers nonstop. Gravity so brutal you can't even move, solid ground where the air turns poisonous to breathe, endless seas of toxin, and storms that never ever let up. Noah could barely wrap his head around how deadly this was, even wondering if the place itself was cursed. Then Tia hit him with the truth. These brutal, extreme trials don't let up. They keep pounding anyone foolish enough to step inside. Stood there utterly stunned while Tia laid out the brutal truth. Sure, you might beat the monsters and dodge the traps, but the hostile land would crush you in the end. Everyone who walks into those parishes doesn't come back the same, she warned. And with a heavy face, she finished the thought. If you want to save her mother, you'll need a power built for surviving a place like that. That one specific requirement snapped his focus. He crossed his arms, muttered the words under his breath, and stared like it held the key to surviving an insane, extreme environment. He locks onto the glowing mark on his hand, and realization hits like a lightning strike. Could his skill be the exact power they've been searching for? With the worlds all spinning around him, he barrels toward Tia, eyes blazing with pure conviction, and declares that he and Tia will rescue her mother together, leaving Tia completely stunned by his words. She snaps him back to her earlier warning and demands, "Did you even hear me?" as she insists it's impossible right now. He admits it might be impossible right now, but he won't quit because he's got a plan. If they keep getting stronger and he stitches her power together with his camping know-how, then maybe they'll pull it off, and as Tia hears it, her doubt starts to crack. He leans in, fully certain that once he levels up his skill, he'll start pulling out way stronger items, and Tia's face lights up like she can't wait to believe it. His excitement skyrockets as he imagines the wild possibilities. If he can craft with his upgraded skill, he'll make camp gear tough enough to survive even the Abyss Dungeon's brutal conditions. As Tia's plan locks into place, her nerves of steel harden, and one terrifying flash of that monstrous moss claws its way into her memory, yet it only fuels her fire. She's sure of it. If she stays with Anoa, she can finally save her mother. She bolts upright, her voice blazing with fresh hope, and announces their next mission. Eat up, power yourselves up, and then go rescue her mother. Anoa nods, sealing their shared goal with. With her pack sealed, she fired off a heartfelt thank you to Anoa, and when he turned back to her, the sincerity hit him so hard he was briefly stunned. Then he just nodded and agreed. He was still reeling from her gratitude when she popped another request. Could he cook something before they went to sleep? He barely opened his mouth when she yanked him into a crushing hug, and he froze, stunned. Now was clutched close, and the second exhaustion hit, his eyes fluttered shut. He dropped into sleep right in her arms. Tia leaned over him, smiled softly, and whispered, "Good night," like she could feel his rest settling in. Under the moon's glow, the night drifted by in a hush that felt almost unreal. As the morning sun spilled into the room, Noah's eyes jerked open. He woke up sprawled on a bed, shocked that he'd fallen asleep without even catching it, and he couldn't help wondering if Tia hauled him there, because he could still feel the faint warmth of her hand. He tilted his head just enough, and there it was, Tia, sleeping peacefully right next to him. His surprise shattered into pure, gut-dropping shock when he saw it. Tia wasn't alone. Ramario was on his other side, and Fairy was curled up at the foot of the bed. The moment Inoa processed it, she erupted into a loud, panicked scream. He stands by the bed, panicking inside, convinced he can't drop his guard for even a breath or he'll fall back asleep, while Tia stretches sleepily behind him, and Ramaria, already dressed in an apron, beams and calls his name. She hands him a tray stacked with finely chopped ingredients and tells him to take a look, and when he praises how amazing it all looks, Ramaria smiles and insists he can hand the rest to her, then kick back and relax. He nods, grabs a massive cooking pot, and locks in with pure determination. He starts breaking down his whole process. First, he simmers a brutal broth from the evil dragon's bones, then he sautés finely chopped veggies in butter, sizzling them into pure flavor. He throws the dragon meat on the heat and sears it until it browns, pulling it off as soon as it hits that faint golden color. Then he drops the seared meat and sautéed veggies straight into the broth and lets everything simmer until the meat turns tender. He finishes the dish by tossing in salt, pepper, and wild mountain herbs. Then he brings it to a gentle boil, and right at the end, he pours in milk and cream. And then it's done Erasmus chowder, a thick, hearty stew that supercharges vitality, toughens defenses, and even boosts fire resistance, with temporary health auto-regeneration to keep him fighting, plus a warm baguette and fruit he picked fresh from the mount. Once the meal was finally ready, he, Tia, Ramaria, and Fairy all dropped into their seats at the table, hands clasped tight as they prayed in thanks before digging in. They devoured every last spoonful of that nourishing chowder, and that rich, salty goodness powered them up like nothing else. The meal hit like a home run. Tia was already reaching for seconds, bowl in hand, while Fairy watched the warmth chase right through her, and Ramaria practically crowned it the perfect breakfast. As for Noah, he just sat there, smiling, and let every bite melt his worries away with. With their appetites finally satisfied, it now snapped to the bigger problem, how to rescue the elves from Alan. Before he could even explain, Tia shot her hand up like a rocket, grinning as she announced she had a plan. Her plan was razor-sharp and simple: slip into Alan's mansion, grab him, give him what he deserves, then free the elves. Inoit couldn't help but chuckle at how fearless she was, but he knew a straight-up assault was way too dangerous. Still, saving the elves had to come first. He leaned in and told her point-blank that slavery had no place in Alice's kingdom, then warned that even if someone like Ramaria could be hidden, like slipping in a group of elves, bringing that many elves, especially right before the 8 Nations inspection, would trip alarms. Next, he snapped his gaze to Ramaria and asked whether she'd been outside the kingdom before they reached the mountain, since she seemed like she'd been ripped straight from under that mansion. Ramaria swallowed hard and admitted she believed that was true. When he saw the fear in her face, he snapped into action, realized he'd messed up, and hurried to apologize for dragging up a wound that hurt so badly. Yet Ramaria, still trembling from the memory, could only choke out a soft, broken apology back. He rethought everything, locked in the plan in the blink of an eye, and decided they'd hit the Kingdom of Valas first to gather more intel for what's coming next. The choice hit everyone like a wave of mixed emotions. Tia practically sparkled with excitement at the thought of seeing the city, while Ramaria admitted she was a little scared but still swore she'd go wherever Noah went, and for Fairy. That news felt even heavier, because it meant this would be her very first trip to a human city. As they geared up for their trip into the human kingdom, Ino suddenly blurted out, "New plan." They had to swap clothes to blend in, and he turned to Fairy like, "Figure out how to hide those unmistakable elf ears." A short time later, the makeover was finally finished, so Inoa stared down from above as Tia beamed and declared they were ready. Fairy now rocked a loose gray hoodie and sweatpants, her elven ears neatly hidden. Ramaria slipped into a modest light green dress over a white blouse, and Tia changed into a white top and black shorts, with her tiger ears and tail still proudly on display. After leveling up his skill, Inao whips out fresh outfits and hands them to his crew, then blurts out that they look insanely adorable. Tia, Fairy, and Ramaria huddle together in sleek modern casual wear, totally different from their usual looks. And Inao grins and explains the reason. Now that his skill is higher, he can finally conjure plain, everyday clothes. She stretches in her brand new tight crop top and dark pants, then tells Ino they're crazy comfy and easy to move in, though she admits she'd rather have something with even less fabric because she truly hates wearing clothes at all. Then Ino flashes a thumbs up and asks how they feel. Turns to Ramaria and demands her opinion too, only for Ramaria to get completely dazzled by her brand new dress, eyes huge as she murmurs that it's absolutely wonderful and blurts out whether she's really allowed to wear it. Her voice shakes with raw emotion as she admits that even the tiniest scrap of cloth would have meant everything to her, so to get something this exquisite feels like more honor than she can even hold. Meanwhile, Fairy throws her arms wide, showing off her fresh hooded sweatshirt and pants to Inoa, and she grins that he actually likes it, because it looks incredible on her. Then she confesses that up to now, she'd only ever worn the elves' traditional clothes, and she's thrilled to finally switch to something new. Her words make Ramaria's brain spin. Are all elven women dressed like Fairy? Fairy fires back that her royal traditional outfit isn't just fashion at all. It's a one-of-a-kind dress passed from princess to princess, so only she's allowed to wear it. Ramaria takes it all in, like the pieces just clicked into place. The calm snaps when Tia suddenly blurts out Ino's name, urgency sharp in her voice. Then she jerks her hand to her chest, totally flustered. She slides in right up against his arm and lanes there, and the second Ino's face erupts into a deep blush, she fires off the question straight to him. How do her new clothes look from this angle? Tia insisted his clothes were totally fine, then she bolted for the bathroom and ordered him to wait, like she had it all under control. Right then he swapped into his own clothes. When the girls came back, they found him standing tall in a plain white t-shirt and dark cargo shorts. Tia's new outfit sparked mixed reactions. She said the clothes looked great and even figured the change would help him dodge recognition from the Wishtar family, but Fairy instantly called it a little childish, and Ramaria fired back that it fit a kid perfectly and told her not to judge someone by how plain their clothes look. He grinned and bragged that his shirt and shorts weren't just regular clothes. They were built from a wild, special material called Retex, and once everything was ready, he clapped and declared it was time to leave. While they got ready, Ramaria praised Inoa's obsessive attention to detail, and Tia nodded, then joked that he can get a little too carried away. Meanwhile, Inoa lit into a full breakdown of the material's perks. It's featherlight but nearly unbreakable, stretchy, and built to balance your body heat, shrugging off wind, water, and heat while still letting you breathe. And he wrapped it up like, "You've got to feel what this stuff can do." They plunged into the wild, dense woods, stepping forward into the unknown. Ramaria strode along, stunned that her legs didn't ache even once. She swore it was all thanks to her brand new shoes. Fairy nodded, saying hers felt like fluffy cotton and were insanely comfy, and with a grin he confirmed the design was meant to cut fatigue, then swung around to ask everyone how their shoes were treating them. His question didn't get answered with words at all. Tia leaned in, and the soft, sudden press of her chest against his face shut him up instantly. He's still visibly rattled from what just happened, and as Tia strides beside him, her cheeks puff out like she's grumbling without a word. They keep pushing deeper into the woods, and he can't ignore her sour mood anymore, so he presses her. "What's wrong?" She turns her face a little, snaps out, "Nothing," like she's trying to outrun it. Her dismissive snap leaves him even more lost, and Tia just looks off to the side, ears flicking, shrugging it off like, "It's fine, maybe it's nothing." Without a single warning, she rockets onto his back and barks that she's exhausted, then orders him to carry her. He whips to the side, gasping in shock, only to realize she feels insanely light. And in the middle of all that chaos, he starts wondering if the food he cooked somehow supercharged his body. That thought ignites a burning ambition in him. One day, he'll become strong enough to carry everyone, even while he's moving. As he trudges on, Ramaria pops in from behind, grinning, saying Tia should transform into a tiger. Then they could all hop on and blaze through the road way faster, and that wild thought instantly lights up her plan for it. Bari jumps on the idea, her eyes lighting up with excitement, but she instantly blurts out a worry that it could be too much for Tia. Yet Ramaria looks totally hooked, practically smiling as she admits she'd love to ride a tiger. Hearing that, Inoa barrels up to Tia and calls out how weird she's been acting, then reminds her she said she wanted to walk like everyone else, but now she won't even move. Tia's flustered, stammering back that she doesn't just want to walk like them, she wants to walk with them. She scoots in closer to Inoa, cheeks blazing, and whispers that yes, she's still just a girl under all that. Inoa can only freeze, eyes bulging as her raw honesty hits him like a punch. Her sudden lurch makes her stumble, and Ramaria yells a warning like, "Watch it." But once Tia regains her footing, she snaps and blasts Inoa, demanding he compliment her outfit and fuss over whether she's tired, then calls him an insensitive idiot. Inoa just stands there, completely stunned and utterly lost. He stammers through it, and his own face goes bright red as he tries to tell her that judging her clothes can count as sexual harassment. Yet Tia just stares back, her expression impossible to read. Then he lays out the real reason. "No, are you tired?" At all, because he trusts her power like it's unbreakable, certain this simple trip won't drain her, and his explanation leaves Tia totally stunned. His bold declaration, "I trust you," rings in her head and she freezes, letting it land like a thunderclap as realization blooms behind her wide, stunned eyes. The moment his trust lands, her whole attitude flips in an instant. She grins like she means business, flexes her arm, and vows that if she sprints for real in her tiger form, they'll be at their destination before you can blink. Inoa just stands there, stunned by how fast she switched gears, and thinks once again that women are complicated no matter what world you're in. With a flash of smoke, she blasts into her giant white tiger form, then lets out a deep rumble and beckons everyone onto her back, and before you know it, the whole crew is tearing across the land at full speed. Their breakneck ride slams them right at the border of a massive, roaring city, then they hit the ground. Inoa hops down and finally lays eyes on the kingdom of Valas for the very first time. Tia, back in her humanoid form, drinks in the crowds like they're a miracle, practically glowing with excitement. In the city of Vals, a towering, twin-spired building rules the skyline. Vals, Adventurers Guild headquarters, all grandeur and menace, and right as you step inside, a man in shining golden armor lights up with a huge, toothy grin, the glint of light snapping off his polished chin guard. In Oa, he and his crew burst into a roaring city, where market stalls shouted bargains and carriages clattered non-stop, and their very first move was to start hunting down information. Right away, Tia's eyes snapped to the nearest food stall. The sizzling grilled meat smelled so good it yanked her attention clean away. Her eyes sparkled as she blurted out how amazing everything looked, already reaching to dig in, but Inoa snapped her back to reality and insisted they hit the guild first. And right beside them, a vendor started yelling at someone who tried to chow down on raw food without paying. With Ino leading the charge, the crew pushed through the city streets until they finally stopped in front of a towering, multi-story building, right where they were supposed to be. He shoved the heavy wooden doors open, and nervousness crashed over him like a wave. This was the Adventurers' Guild at last. Behind his back, the girls leaned in, their eyes wide with curiosity and a little fear. The moment they stepped inside, the place hit them like a punch. An enormous open hall, tall arched ceilings soaring overhead, packed with people and crackling with energy, and all they could do was stare, stunned. The cavern roared with loud, battle-worn adventurers slamming drinks at tables, haggling at the counter, and constantly scanning the quest board for their next payday. Their youthful faces instantly grabbed the wrong kind of attention. Spiky-haired jerk strutted over with a smug smirk, snapped that this wasn't a place for kids, and then another adventurer from the next table laughed and told them to go home and drink their mother's milk, while the first guy boldly suggested the girls come have a drink with them. When the men started mocking them, the four companions didn't flinch. They held their ground, faces set like stone, staring back like a dare while the air turned razor-thin with tension. Tia's growls started to rumble beside him, anger simmering because the adventurer wouldn't stop taunting them, so he hissed Tia and pressed a hand to her shoulder to keep her from lunging, because he could feel the mocking in every word. He laid out his plan, begging her to stay calm, because one wrong stir could yank Alan's attention like a magnet. Tia bit back her doubts and nodded, and right when the tension finally started to loosen, a fresh voice snapped through the guild noise, calling straight to the black-haired girl. A man in gleaming plate armor wore a brutal, wide grin as he stared, and the second he spotted Remeria, he snapped, demanding why a Wishto family slave was here. Then he sneered about how useful she'd been before, and that cold remark hit Remeria like a lightning strike, eyes widening in pure terror. When the man's rage flared, Fairy shot between him and Inoa, throwing herself in front of the boy, and Remeria, still shaking with terror, could only stammer their names as the knight bore down on them, while a smirk curled across the man's lips. The knight kept throwing taunts, waving them off as childish rambling, and then, right in the middle of his words, Inoa suddenly snapped to it. There was no question, this was the man who had the exact information they were dying to find. Tia's patience snapped the second he even tried to move. She strode up, jabbed a finger in the armored man's face, and barked, "Who the hell are you?" Then she pressed, asking if he knew Dominic. The knight, this deranged guild adventurer, flinched like he hadn't expected that, scoffed anyway, and told the kids to get out before they ended up getting hurt. His smug, condescending voice oozed amusement as he leaned in and set a gauntlet hand on his greatsword's pommel, then shot a grin across his face. "So, you're upset." He swatted away their rage with one flick of his hand, insisting the kids just didn't know him. Yet, then his smile died, his eyes narrowed, and his voice went ice cold as he stared at the whole group and demanded, "Answer me, why is there a slave here?" "What?" He clocks Remeria's terrified look. She shakes like a leaf, realizing that for her own good, they should peel back from this confrontation right now. Dominic steps forward, plays dumb like it's all just a mistake, but then he flashes a vicious grin and reveals his secret, super smell. He says it lets him pinpoint any scent he's ever run into, and he's got Remeria pegged because she smells exactly like the slave he remembers. His confidence is rock solid as he points at her, then snaps that this filthy brat is the very slave he remembers, hitting her with a brutal flashback of her chained up in racks. Inoa realizes there's no escaping the truth, cursing the man's way too convenient talent in her head as Dominic keeps taunting her, watching how the girl who was battered and bleeding now looks shockingly beautiful. His predatory stare snaps over to Tia and the fairy, and he sizes them up with no mercy, then grins and says the other two look pretty damn good too. He flicks his pierced tongue in a crude, cocky show and spits that he could mess with all three of them, right now, and that blatant threat slams a wave of shock and disgust onto Inoa and his crew. That disgusting comment is the last straw. Energy snaps in the air around Inoa as his eyes blaze with pure fury, and he makes a quick, sharp decision, voice hard and low, "Let's get out of here." Without a word, he snaps around and marches his party out, charging up that massive staircase to slam the hostile guild hall door behind them. Teeth clenched and shaking, he swallows his fury. Tia's right there, silent as ever. Fairy keeps a worried eye on beneath the hood, while Remeria slips in his name under her breath, her voice heavy with concern. Tia clenches her fists and agrees something has to be done, but Inao brushes it off, telling her to drop it, because right now is not the moment to confront Dominic. As they walk off, Dominic scoffs and snaps that the retreat is boring. Then he starts bragging, savoring every wicked second he used to live, talking about how he'd press a cigar to Remeria's face just to make her sob and beg, and how he'd stomp on her head while Alan laughed right beside him. The terror in her eyes still thrills him, and he can't wait to see it again. So those words hit Remeria like a punch, her face twisting in pure horror as tears instantly flood her eyes. His taunts keep flying as he calls after them, smug grin blazing while he demands to know if they forgot something, then the group freezes. Inao's back is still turned, but a brutal pressure surges out of him. His eyes flare wide with pure shock and then instant, uncontrollable rage, as a faint beast of stripes starts to crawl across his skin. With a sudden burst of motion, he whips around and rockets back at Dominic, tearing up the stone floor with the sheer force of his takeoff. His fist clenched like a loaded spring, he can barely stop himself from swinging, an instant confession that his fury got the best of him. The sudden violence rips through the guild hall, stunning even his own companions. Across the room, he shoots out a quiet apology, admitting that all his talk of restraint couldn't hold back the anger. In a gilded courtyard, the crowd erupts as Dominic, fully armored, gets launched flying through the air, and everyone can't help but stare, wondering what kind of strength this kid actually has. Meanwhile, Inoa plants his feet, tightens his fist with that crescent mark, and thinks, good thing he hit the slums before showing up. His companions came storming up. Tia, with arms crossed, warned the fairy that they weren't supposed to start trouble, and the fairy apologized anyway, insisting she just couldn't bring herself to forgive what Dominic had done. While nearby, Ramaria stared at Inoa, worry etched all over her face. Maria tries to steady them, swearing she's totally fine, but her legs shake like crazy. Tia just laughs it off, saying if Dominic had gotten any closer, she'd have slugged him herself. Then she whips a fast flurry of punches through the air to prove it. Seeing Ramaria's panic, Inoa lets out a shaky sigh. Then Fairy steps in and rests a hand on Ramaria's shoulder, telling Inoa to back off and trust her, because she'll take care of the trembling girl. Across the courtyard, Dominic snaps to his feet, fury twisting his face. He roars that he doesn't know who hit him or where they came from, but it won't matter. With a chilling stare, he leans in and asks, "So, are you ready to die?" Right above you, that powerhouse voice booms through the air, loud, fearless, and impossible to ignore. The command snaps Dominic and Inava out of it, and they both whip their heads toward a balcony above the courtyard, where a cloaked figure stands, watching everything like it's already decided. Without warning, the man rockets off the balcony and slams down between the two fighters with a thunderous crash, the ground shattering beneath his landing. Then he flings open his fur-collared cloak, shielding Inava from Dominic's strike. Inoa froze, then the sudden appearance hit him like a punch. His eyes went wide, and the boy just stared, silently trying to figure out who the man that stepped in was. The reply came from the onlookers. Dominic snapped, recognizing the man as Rod Macbeth, the guildmaster, while Inoa overheard it and realized he'd just stepped up to the guy running the whole place, and Fairy immediately felt the weight of his authority too. Dominic brushed off the interruption with a wicked, manic grin, then jabbed a bony gauntlet finger at Inao and declared the combat arena was where they'd finally settle everything, his hunger for the fight roaring loud in every word. Guildmaster Rod Macbeth nodded along with Dominic's idea like it was nothing, arms crossed, then ordered them to take their duel to the arena tucked behind the reception area. Rage twisted Dominic's face as he snarled at Inoa, barking that he better not run, yet Inoa stared him down with icy resolve, quietly swearing he'd repay every ounce of pain 100 times over. Meanwhile, Inao's party watched the tension spiral out of control. Fairy blurted out that since she was the one who jumped in, she should be the one to take the fight, and she swore she could end it in seconds, but Inao snapped back that it was okay. He snapped back to his crew with a cocky grin and a thumbs up, brushing aside the fairy's worries, and Inoa leaned in to tell Tia, "I'm good, let your master deal with it." Her face stayed drenched in worry, those wide eyes locked on him as he started to turn and walk away. She flashes a confident smile, leans in close, and says, "All right, I'm putting my trust in you, just so you know." Her voice booms through the massive stone-walled arena, and down below, Inoa and Dominic, tiny against the dust-choked expanse, square off as spectators pack the upper walkway. Up in the stands, his buddies go wild, shouting encouragement from their seats. Tia throws her fist in the air and screams at Inoa to beat his opponent down, while the dark-haired girl just lights up and cheers his name. Elsewhere in the crowd, people start playing it like a game of fate. Adventurers slap down bets. One guy even asks how long it'll take Dominic to pull off the win, and before you know it, another man throws in 80,000 souls, while someone else counters with 50,000, piling the odds so high they're almost bad news for the NOAA. In the arena, Dominic sneers down at the clueless crowd, then leans in toward Inoa and claims that his quick hit earlier proved he's not weak, so now he swears he won't hold back or underestimate him, because he's going to crush him with everything he's got. His eyes slide to the stands, and a ruthless smirk spreads across his face. Ramaria jerks back in terror. He wets his lips, then throws out his demand. After he wins, he wants to know exactly what to hand over to the slave, because he's itching to play with her again. Noah's face flashes with that vile threat, and in an instant his eyes blow wide, his pupils snapping tight with raw, unfiltered rage. He snaps his head up, fury blazing across his face, and fires back at the armored warrior with a nasty question. "So what happens if I crush you? Dominic, still kneeling and stretching, just laughs like it's nothing, then taunts him. If Anoa wins, he'll follow any order, and he acts like the whole idea is ridiculous. Dominic erupted in a brutal, power-laced aura, and Anoa just stared, dumbfounded, while the armored brute roared that he'd never let Anoa's threat come true, leaving the boy wondering if this crushing pressure was pure magic. As Dominic clenched his gauntlet into a deadly fist, glowing runes snapped into existence in midair, crackling with raw power. From the sidelines, Guildmaster Rod Macbeth clocked the spell at once, bodily enhancement magic, and he watched Dominic, the sly fighter who picks his moments and wipes out opponents with deadly precision, the same skill that earned him his nickname. Then Macbeth's face hardened as he realized the boy was done for. And that's when the mystery behind the Golden Crow snapped into focus. Right behind Dominic, a massive, ghostly golden crow tore itself into existence, while the armored warrior jabbed a finger at Anoa and swore he'd regret taking him on, as a sudden slash of energy ripped through the air nearby. He locked eyes with his opponent, who calmly declared his first move, and promised he'd shut every single one of Anoa's escape routes. The boy planted his feet and weighed every move, thinking, if Dominic's boosting his body, then I'm bringing the same kind of power, two can play this game. His decision landed, and as soon as he reached into his inventory, the whole crowd erupted in confusion. Fairy, Fred, and the dark-haired girl stared as he pulled out a strange, pulsating organ. One of them joked it looked like a delicious heart, but Anao smirked. He knew it was way more dangerous than that. A camping item he called asterisk true cut asterisk with. Without a pause, he drove his knife in and split the organ wide open, then yanked out a tiny, dark core, gulped it down, and felt raw power rip through his veins like lightning. Suddenly, Anoa grabs his chest, soaked in sweat, and screams in brutal agony as a burning heat tears through his body. Up in the stands, his friends panic. Ramaria snaps that something's off. Fairy says he looks like he's in real pain, and Tia blurts that it has to be food poisoning, wondering if it was a terrible idea for a human to chow down on raw entrails. Across the arena, Dominic locks eyes on Anoa's staggering posture, and something feels off, because the kid is wide open for a beatdown. Dominic's mind spirals. Did Anoa just lose the will to fight after realizing he had zero chance of winning? He cuts that thought down with a cruel grin, because the reason doesn't even matter. He's just staring at someone who's moments from dying, and with that final chill in his head, he swings his massive sword in half, ready to land the last blow. With a triumphant roar, he bursts forward and slams the gap shut in the blink of an eye. John snaps the leash on his ultimate move, Destructive Slash, then blasts a lethal wave of energy straight at Anoa, carving the ground to pieces and zeroing in on the weak spot. As the attack erupts, Ramaria's face twists with raw terror, and she shrieks his name like her world just shattered. As the dust finally clears, a brand new figure rises out of the wreckage. Anoa's body is totally transformed. Sharp red horns tipped with flickering flames burst from his temples, a long, scaled red tail whips behind him, and draconic scales now crawl over his arms and feet. His face has flipped, now his eyes blaze a piercing gold with reptilian slits. The crowd can't even breathe as he goes silent until one voice breaks it and demands, "Is the kid still alive?" Another can't stop staring, wondering how anyone blocked that technique. Ramaria, Tia, and the fairy freeze in disbelief, and Ramaria can only whisper, "His appearance, it's changed." Dominic, the opponent, just freezes in total disbelief. His face twists in pure shock, because there's no way he can wrap his head around how Ano actually blocked his ultimate technique, that destructive slash. His eyes narrow sharply and his pupils squeeze into chilling slits as he studies the transformed Anoa, because this change hits him like a punch. Something about him feels fundamentally wrong, and it makes zero sense. Anoa snaps around at the warrior's hesitation, then bolts across the dead land, his only thought screaming escape. Meanwhile, his companions strain their eyes from a distance. Ramaria blurts that she can't believe what she's seeing, asking if that's really Anao. Tia nods and says, yes, it's him, but she can't shake the feeling that something about him is off. Even the sentiment fairy goes quiet, and suddenly a picture of the mighty dragon Erasmus flashes in her mind. Safe at last, Anao stares at what his desperate gamble unleashed. An interface snaps open the truth. The dragon heart he swallowed didn't just fuel him with insane power, it also carried a deadly poison. Still, his stats explode upward. Vitality, mana, attack, defense, and agility all rocket higher. And the best part, he snagged a borrowed beast skill that lets him hit with the same attack power as the evil dragon Erasmus. While he tore apart Erasmus' body, he remembered where he'd found that item, and it hit him. It was the evil dragon's core. He'd been saving it for his showdown with Alan, but this whole disaster ripped that plan right out of his hands. A spark of excitement erupts across his face the moment he finally confesses the real reason he did it. He couldn't stop himself from chasing what the core really does, that's all. He clenches his fist, grinning hard, because he's officially pulled the evil dragon's power into his own hands. Back on the battlefield, Dominic finally lets out a breath of relief. His heart had jumped at the boy's sudden shift, but it looks like he thinks the danger's gone for good. While the night keeps everyone hidden, Inao studies a freshly grown draconic tail and walks around feeling totally untouchable, like there's nothing left to fear. Dominic refused to get rattled by the boy's brand new draconic form, then snapped his focus into his final move. He sucked in power, roared, and let an ocean of electricity thunder around his sword. Dominic let out one last, roaring challenge as the crowd screamed in panic, sure the whole arena would buckle under his power. Then with a furious die, he unleashed a brutal grand slash, sending a wall of energy ripping straight across the ground toward Innova. The blast slammed into Inoa head-on, but he didn't budge. His face stayed calm as the wrecking force crumpled against some unseen shield and left him completely untouched. He stood there stone calm, while everything around him lay shattered into cratered wreckage from the attack he'd somehow brushed off without breaking a sweat. The dust finally settled and Dominic just gaped. His opponent looked totally unscathed. Then Ino snapped forward and slammed a fist, reaping it in dark, draconic power. That blast sent a shockwave rippling way out beyond everyone's reach. Inside the nearby building, Ferry and Romario snapped to attention as a hole tore straight through their ceiling, while Tia just stared upward at the blazing pillar of energy outside, clocked that Dominic and Inoa were gone, then grinned like she'd just witnessed a flawless victory and praised Inoa for a job perfectly done. Meanwhile, Dominic got blasted upward by the counterattack, rocketing into the sky and spiraling uncontrollably over the city below. As he crashed down, his mind sprinted. How could his armor, built to shrug off blows from monsters at the top of the food chain, get shattered in just 2 hits? He stared, stunned, trying to figure out who that boy was, then panic snapped into rage and resolve. Next time, he swore, it ends with him. And while gravity waited, he slammed his focus into hardening his body for the impact. He slams into the ground, staring up in pure shock, because hovering above him is Inoa, now rocking one horn and a long, scaly tail, with eyes that hold zero emotion. Rage boils in his chest as arrogance shatters into raw terror. He stammers out an apology, admits he lost, and begs for mercy, until panic turns into a desperate demand. Who the hell are you? He now shuts the plea down cold, snarling that he's not the one who needs to apologize. Then with a furious roar, he declares Dominic should be the one begging forgiveness from his Remeria. He snaps at the terrified man to clench his teeth, then smashes down with a brutal blow, his fist bursting into a roaring, demonic torrent of fire, the evil flame fist. The impact explodes into a monstrous cloud of dust and smoke, swallowing the whole scene in seconds. As the smoke finally thins, Dominic staggers into view, crumpled in the middle of a crater, his once glittering armor ripped apart into jagged pieces. Inoa, transformed, is perched on the defeated warrior's back, staring into nothing, like he's still trying to wrap his head around the brutal power he just unleashed. Inoa stared at his hands and felt the tension drain out of him. He was back to normal. All around, the fight's wreckage screamed the truth. Dominic was sprawled out, defeated, eyes rolled back. And from the crowd, Tia Fresberg shot her arms into the air, yelling Inoa's name like a victory song, rallying the other girls as they celebrated. Right at the celebration, Ramaria steps up to Tia, looks the beast woman in the eyes, and admits that seeing Tia get so angry for her, or rather on her behalf, fills her with real, unstoppable happiness. Hearing that, Inoa snaps that he couldn't just sit there in silence while someone was talking trash about a vital companion, so Ramaria freezes, cheeks burning as she blurts his words like, important too. The sudden motion snaps the attention of a long-haired man with glasses. He just easily heaves unconscious Dominic onto his shoulder and tells him, I'm taking him to another room. Then he waves Inoa over, and Inoa immediately remembers the promise they're here to pull from Dominic. Where the slaves are. They guide everyone into a private room and drop Dominic onto the bed. Then Inoa and the others just watch as the man turns to them and straight up says that Inoa didn't do badly at all in the fight. Rod Macbeth then steps up and introduces himself with full confidence, saying plain as day that Dominic won't be stopped by just anyone. Then he turns to Inoa and reminds him, per their deal, Dominic will do whatever he's told, and Rod is about to lay out the one request he wants. Noah stares back, totally confused by the suggestion, and when Rob Macbeth locks eyes with him, disappointment flickers across his face as he points out just how unambitious Noah's request really was, especially after Dominic promised he'd do anything. Rod Macbeth leans back, drops the big truth. Adventurers' guilds don't follow normal territory rules. They run on their own set of laws. Inoa and the crew hang on every word, and the kid can't help blurting out a question about the weird new term. He kept talking, saying the guild's one true rule is all about slave ownership, and that Dominic has known for ages exactly how to twist this legal loophole to pull off his dirty crimes. Inoa listened like it was life or death, then nodded, sure he finally understood every detail. For that exact reason, he told Anoa, I need your help with something, can you hear me? Elsewhere in the building, Dominic flinched and bolted off with a sharp, piercing cry. He suddenly found himself in the same room as Anoa's party, and the guildmaster himself welcomed him like, yeah, your resilience is exactly what I expected from someone in ranked adventure. The beaten adventurer spat out a curse as the truth of his loss finally hit, and Noah stayed cool, telling him this was when he'd finally carry out the promise he made the day he fell. Without wasting a second, he barked that he needed to know exactly where Alan had the other slaves locked up. Dominic snapped his gaze up, stunned, wondering if that was really all Anoa wanted answered. Dominic didn't waste a second. He blurted out their location, the Eastern Fort, a massive stronghold sitting a full 9 kilometers away. The guildmaster snapped that he'd fortify the border checkpoint for one reason: civilians can't be allowed anywhere near it. Dominic then laid it out. Alan's the one paying the sentries, and the king would never step into a spot like that, so their whole operation stays locked down in secrecy. Dominic stays bound, drops to his knees, and starts demanding his freedom, saying he's paid his end of the bargain in full. Right next to him, Inau tells Ramaria the border is exactly where they needed to be, sealing it with one certainty. They made the right call staying put. The guild master steps forward, voice steady as he drops the accusation. Dominic kidnapped kids and sold them into slavery to the Wishtar family, so Dominic just glares back unrepentant and spits. What difference does that make? What? He admits that's true, but Dominic cuts him off, dropping a mannequin into the mix, and then smugly boasts that he only sold the kids, insisting that somehow still doesn't break the rules. Right then, Ramaria cuts in from behind them, calm as a blade, and tells Dominic he should have checked exactly whose kids he was ferrying around. The guildmaster snatches up her point with a faint grin, then lays out Dominic's real blunder. He didn't just bolt without paying his debt, he kidnapped the daughter of the same people he cheated, and now everyone's got to be furious, and that clicks for Dominic. His bravado collapses into raw, helpless terror. He keeps going, warning that the people Dominic just ran into will torture him worse than any slave ever could, so when the trap snaps shut, Dominic is left pinned and powerless, spitting curses straight in his face. His composure shatters. He storms at Anoa, screaming for help, sobbing that if this keeps going, he'll be killed. Before he can even breathe an answer, Tia slides right beside him and grills Dominic like, who do you think you are, asking for help? Anoa ignores her completely, locks eyes with the desperate man, and lays down the rules. First, he has to give Ramaria a real, heartfelt apology. Dominic, tied up and cornered, snapped into agreement the second he was faced with the truth, then begged them to believe he'd never meant harm, claiming he'd only done it because Alan ordered him. He dropped to his knees and begged for forgiveness, his face twisted into a grotesque mask of desperation, but Ramaria, Fairy, and Tia stared in horror. Fairy just flat-out rejected his plea. Ramaria's fury roared back at her refusal. Eyes blazing, she snapped that she'd never forgive him, and she made it clear that he'd even tried to harm Anoa. As she finally sat down, Inau spoke coolly to the stunned Dominic, telling him that right now, there was nothing left to do but swallow his fate and curse the bastards who caused all of this. He scoffed at the boys' words, mocking them for dropping their guard, then his bindings strained tight, creaking and whining as he fought to break free. With a violent surge of power, he triggered his skill. Then the restraints popped loose, and the ropes binding him snapped apart in an instant. He lunged at the window and cackled like he'd finally broken the world, then blew their minds by revealing he wasn't just any thief. His real skill was so sharp it gave him super smell and the power to slip free of any restraints. He taunted them for expecting him to show his tricks in their duel, thanked the guild with a grin, and smashed straight through the glass as the crowd froze in pure, stunned disbelief. But Dominic suddenly crashed to the ground, couldn't even move, and Noah just calmly raised a tiny bag, then told the guildmaster that he'd drugged the man while he slept, and the guildmaster nodded as it clearly started working. He finally spills the truth behind Dominic's knockout, a paralysis mushroom. Its venom locks the muscles in place, and even a tiny dose can pin someone completely still for a while. The moment hits, Rod Macbeth's foot pins Dominic to the ground, and Dominic panics, begging him to bring the girl back and to stop trying to run. Rod just stays cold and flatly tells him the whole situation is already beyond his control. Then Rod whips Dominic's gaze to the crowd of enforcers behind him, faces set in stone, and tells him, "This is who you have to plead your case to right now." Panic and pure rage crash into Dominic when he finally realizes he's been betrayed. He whips around, screams at Rod for selling him out, begs the incoming men to stop, but nobody even listens. As the brutal retribution erupts, Inau throws himself in front of Ramaria, covering her view and whispering, "Don't look." The girl obeys instantly, dropping her gaze away. Nearby, Fairy keeps her gaze locked on the chaos from under her hood, solemn as ever, while Tia's face snaps into pure, wide-eyed shock. He now snaps Ramaria in tight against the shield, then quietly tells her this is just karma playing out exactly as it should. He stands there beside her, locked in front of those silent enforcers, and doubt flares in his eyes as he braces for their nightmare to finally be announced. Elsewhere, a jaw-dropping woman with a dragon tattoo winding down her arm takes a long drag from her pipe, her face tightening with a sharp letdown. What a pity, she mutters. And honestly, she's been thinking about taking the punishment into her own hands. A stunning woman in an ornate kimono steps right in front of Enro and his crew, a huge dragon tattoo curling across her arm, and Enro freezes. Who is she, and why does her outfit leave him stumbling for words? Tia's jaw drops too, her brain in overdrive as she compares the stranger's figure to her own. She shifts her focus to Enro, her face locked in a mystery, while Enro's grip on reality falters. He can't swallow the idea that a tiny child could have actually beaten Dominic. She just flashes a simple thank you, and the boy freezes for a second, mouth hanging open, cheeks burning red. Then she steps forward and introduces herself, Rene Ruiz, the head of the Ruiz group, and drops the bombshell that her own daughter was one of the kids kidnapped by the man they've been hunting, but somehow he slipped away before they could corner him. She asks what Rene plans to do, and Rene admits it all. Her daughter's got a fierce sense of justice, so after seeing Dominic mess up, she'll probably storm right up to him, and all Rene can do is pray her kid stays safe. Even with worry gnawing at her, she snaps. She's not backing down. She declares she'll lead the whole crew into an all-out assault to crush this problem, and behind her, a wall of tough men stands poised and ready. Noah snaps back right away, firing off a warning that doing this would brand her a criminal. Then he hammers the point that even if she manages to reunite with her daughter, they'll rip the girl away again. Rene can't deny his logic, but she steels herself and declares, if I can save my daughter, then nothing else matters. Rene and her crew brace at the wooden dock, ready to bolt. Then Noah shouts her name like he's begging her not to go. With wide, earnest eyes, Rene Ruiz stared at him as he dropped a jaw-dropping request. He demanded that she hand the rescue of her daughter to him. Rene froze in shock, but Noah rushed to explain that he couldn't keep asking someone who had already helped him, and then he assured her he had his own reasons for stepping in. When he looked her right in the eyes and said, Rene-san, everything in the air seemed to ease up. Then he dropped the real truth. If she truly wanted what was best for her daughter, she had to wait calmly for her to come back. That desperate plea froze Rene in place, her eyes bulging with pure disbelief as she couldn't find a word. His eyes narrowed, then dropped to the ground, and his resolve locked in like steel, because he knew this was a Wishdar family matter, and only one person could end it, him, with his own hands. After a tense beat of silence, Rene's face shifted. She admitted it hurt to ask, but she'd take his favor anyway, and she even thanked him, leaving him totally bewildered. Was stunned when she suddenly dropped into a deep bow, swearing she'd do anything to repay him, and even with that formal gesture making his nerves flare, Enro kept urging her to step back. But Rene stayed there, still bowed, a sweet little smile tugging at her lips as she quietly thought what an adorable boy he was. An impatient voice sliced through the air from the shadows. Then Tia stepped out, demanded, "Are you done talking?" She snapped that Enro was worn out and ordered everyone to leave fast, no delays. Rene snapped upright, a smug little smirk creeping across her face. Tia hovered behind her, asking what was wrong, but Rene brushed it off like it was nothing at all. When she called it time to go, she snapped out an order for her men to fall back. One of them, a tough guy in a fur-collared coat, thanked Enro and offered to walk him straight to the exit. Then the Ruiz crew broke apart like they'd been blown off course, leaving Enro and Tia stranded behind. She freezes in the doorway, whirls back to Enro for one last look, then steps out for good. With a mischievous wink, she sends him a kiss right on the spot like, "See you later, kid." The door slams shut with a thunderous bang, and both Enro and Tia jerk in surprise, flinching hard at the sudden shock. In the quiet aftermath, the group huddles up and talks about the woman who just walked out. Pigtail's girl says she found Rene charming, but Tia snaps back that she could have been more considerate. Then Tia warns that Rene's provocative vibe is poison to a young boy, and hearing that, Enro's stomach knots as he grits his teeth at the word, because he's 30 years old. Right in the middle of his thoughts, his body betrays him. He lurches forward, slams onto the wooden floor, and his companions just freeze in stunned silence. 3 women burst toward him in pure panic. Enro, they shouted, pleading. "Fairy," one of them cried as Fairy tore off to get help, while Tia desperately begged him to snap out of it. He sprawled on the ground, and pain and sweat blurred everything as a grim truth finally hit. This sudden weakness had to be the evil Dragon Core's backlash. He can barely keep his eyes open, face blazing red, and this situation is so dire it screams disaster. He slowly opens his eyes, and there she is, Maria, staring down at him, one tear sliding down her cheek as she whispers his name, her voice shaking with pure worry. The instant he comes to, she slams into his chest, sobbing his name like a dam finally breaks, pure, unstoppable relief. She clamps him in a tight hug and sobs, crying that she's finally so happy he's awake and bursting with relief. He pulls her close, murmurs gentle comforts, and apologizes for being the reason she fell into distress, for making her worry so much. Right as the reunion starts to hit its stride, a brutal, thunderous rumble blasts through the hall, jarring the whole building, and everyone instantly wonders, is this an earthquake? The chaos spills into view with a brutal blast of splintered wood and shattered plaster, right as the bedroom wall gets obliterated from the outside. Tia and Fairy crash into the room through the freshly cut hole, and Tia blurts in shock, yelling whether Enro is alive because she almost died from the shock too. Fairy stays cool, says they grabbed the quickest path, then shoots Tia a look for not just using the door. Amid all the rubble from that grand entrance, Fairy grabs Enoa and asks how he's holding up, and Enoa shoots back that he's totally fine now, wiping the tension from everyone's faces like a wave of relief. His reassurance hits Tia like a flashback. She whips around, hauls out a huge sack, and declares she's got a souvenir just for him, while Enoa watches, dying to know what's inside. He watches as Tia, with Fairy beside her, proudly reveals a mountain of forged ingredients, then declares they hunted everything down just so he could taste it. Yet those weird fish and colorful mushrooms hit him with an awful wave of déjà vu. Suspicion spikes in him. He remembers that, sure, the fish are probably safe, but wild plants usually bite back, no matter how pretty they look. In a flash, his mind runs the numbers, and the answer lands hard. The ingredients really are suspicious. He flashes a knife with wild confidence, tells the disappointed girls he can detox the food with his real slicing skill, while T.O. stands there heartbroken, mourning how much effort they poured into gathering everything. Right when he leaped out of bed to start cooking on the spot, Ramaria and Fairy burst in and dragged him to a stop. Ramaria just stared, amazed at how powerful his skill really was. Tia cuts in, tells him he's barely recovered and needs to rest, then hits him with the bombshell. She's borrowing his true cut skill. He freezes, utterly baffled, then Ramaria jumps in, chiming that the kitchen is already secured and every preparation is done. A shock of clarity hits him the moment his eyes lock onto the shiny blade in Tia's hand, and he can't help but wonder if this time, everything will finally change. Tia, Fairy, and Ramaria stand right in front of him, eyes locked and hearts set, and with a knife lifted high, they shout together that they're the ones who'll cook the meal. Noah sat there stuck in thought about the meal coming next. He figured Ramaria and the Fairy could knock together something normal, but Tia was the real nightmare. Just imagining what that mirror might stir up, fear crawled straight down his spine. Before Tia, Ramaria, and the Fairy even finished arriving, they shoved a serving cart forward, and there it was, a dish so absurdly huge that Inao clocked it instantly as Tia's. Inao stepped up, squared her shoulders, and declared she'd be the first to unveil what she made. She let the big reveal happen, unlocked her secret stew inside the giant pot, and there it was, whole fish staring up with dead, vacant eyes, drifting among a pile of mystery lumps that didn't look like anything you should eat. The whole scene was bone-chilling. With terror in her eyes, Inao blurted out, demanding to know what she'd just done. Like, did Tia seriously dump every single ingredient straight into that pothole? Tia lit up with pride, grinning and saying, "Yep," insisting it was exactly something to brag about. Inoa tried to reason with her, saying wild herbs were fine, but you can't toss a whole fish into stew like it's nothing. She shot back that she eats them whole all the time, because she's a tiger. Sighing, Inoa gave up and accepted he had to take the bite, and Tia lit up, immediately shoving spoonfuls at him. He gripped the spoon in front of him, and a crushing silence slammed into the room. Inoa stared on, sweat carving a lonely trail down his face. Then he whispered her name so softly that Tia snapped her eyes up, confused and wondering. She broke the quiet with one sharp question, "Did you season the stew at all?" And that hit Tia like a lightning bolt. She realized she'd completely forgotten, because she never normally seasons her food, and being a tiger just makes everything harder. Still, Inao took a careful bite, and his face lit up. The mountain veggies and fish tasted amazing, with zero fishy stink, and he couldn't help wondering if his razor-precise cuts were to blame. When he praised Tia, she burst with joy, practically glowing because he really thought it was great. Then everyone's eyes snapped to the next dish, a shiny, glistening piece of fish laid on a plate, because it was Fairy's turn next. Fairy leaned in and carefully carved into the fish clean, precise slices. Tia shot her a knowing look and said a princess was supposed to be able to handle the kitchen. Fairy shrugged that a servant had taught her years ago. And as Anoa watched, she praised the dish, saying it looked so insanely delicious. Tia moved fast and fed him with a lifted bite, teasing him the whole time. "Looks aren't everything, huh? It's the taste that counts." Then she held up a sauced piece of fish right in front of him, and he leaned in, opening his mouth to take the bite. The second the food hit his tongue, he blasted out an unbearable scream that tore through the room. leaving everyone staring, shocked and panicking at his sudden eruption. Gasping for air, he snapped that she'd gone way too far with the sauce, demanding to know what she put in it. Fairy stayed cool and named it Irikita Hanishi, a wild herb from the elven forest that hits like a power-up for vitality and stamina. Then she flashed a sly grin, oops, saying she must have overdone it, but Inao wasn't fooled. He accused her of doing it on purpose and actually loving watching him suffer. The fiery ordeal finally burned out and the last dish slid onto the table, a golden brown sailfish fry, and now it was Ramaria's turn. A rich aroma swept through the air and Anoa nodded like, yep, this is exactly Ramaria. Fairy chimed in, praising the amazing smell, but Tia snapped, I'm not eating it. Then immediately betrayed herself with a wagging tail and a mouth watering nonstop, while Anoa Riley noticed her body was clearly screaming the truth. Once he gave his approval, Ramaria seized her chopsticks, grabbed a bite and leaned in, then offered to feed him, and he instantly opened wide and accepted it without a second thought. He tore into the sailfish fry, and the second he did, his eyes blew wide with pure delight, crunchy and perfect on the outside, tender and juicy inside, and with every bite the flavor hit harder until a squeeze of lemon turned it into something unreal. Ramarius watched him and grinned, relieved he loved her dish, while Tia beside her kept stuffing her own plate with pure gusto. Fairy just sat there, watching it all. Some time later, he sprawled across his bed and clutched his aching stomach, groaning because he'd overdone it. He ate way too much. He finally sat back and right on cue, a fairy drifted over and fired the one question everyone dreads, whose dish was the best. Ramaria teased her for pushing him to polish off everything, but Anoa just shrugged and said he couldn't stand leaving a single bite behind because every meal was cooked with so much love that wasting even a crumb felt wrong. His words hung there like thunder before a storm. Tia, Ramaria, and Fairy stared at him, their breath caught as they waited for his final verdict. He shattered the tension with a warm, genuine grin and admitted he couldn't even rank them. Every single one was delicious, and they'd all made him genuinely happy. Then he thanked everyone from the bottom of his heart. Relief hit them like a wave, joy bursting through their chests. Ramaria's kindness was downright charming. Fairy let out a sweet little chuckle, and Tia lit up, grinning as she told him, "You're welcome." Right when Inao thought everything was calm, bam, someone slammed a hard knock on the door. She startled, spun toward the sound, and shouted, "Who's there?" He swings the door open, and there stands Riene Ruiz right on the threshold. Behind him, Tia snaps into instant hostility, ears pinned flat as she snarls that Riene better explain why she's here. Riene doesn't even flinch. She looks straight down at Anoa and says, dead calm, that she came to talk to him. She strides right into the room, tells them to sit, and when Anoa and the others stare, she fumbles for a beat, then casually pulls her pipe from between her breasts like it's no big deal and waves it in front of them. Here it is. Right after they finally sat down, a jittery Anoa asked what she wanted to talk about, smoke spilling from his breath, but she didn't waste a second. She went straight for the point, pressing him on how he planned to reach the eastern fortress. Inao is totally caught off guard by her blunt honesty. Reina even offers to line up a carriage, but Tia cuts in fast, swearing they don't need one because she can haul everyone herself, and even with Tia pushing back, Inao instantly takes Reina up on the offer. She keeps grilling him, telling him to save every last ounce of energy, then fires back, what's his plan the moment they arrive. She warns that getting into a spot packed with soldiers won't be easy, and finally drops her move. She'll slip in disguised as approved personnel. He snaps to his feet, draped in a long coat, and spills the truth. He's an exiled former member of House Wishdar, leaving Reina frozen for a beat. He breaks down his plan. With House Wishdar stretching across so many branches, he can slip past their guards as a noble as long as they don't know his face. And when Riene hears it, she starts to admit it, his scheme just might work. With everyone's plans locked in, he turns to Reina and asks her to keep an eye on Ramaria while they're stuck at the fortress, and that request hits Ramaria like a punch to the gut. He spills why he's hesitating, confessing that the fortress is packed with painful memories for Ramaria, and he can't bring himself to drag her there. Ramaria nods, saying she doesn't want to go either, but her thoughts trail off mid-sentence. She locks eyes with him, fierce and unshakable, and tells him straight up, the worst pain won't be anything else, it'll be being unable to help him. He spins around, still shaken, and blurts that the fortress soldiers might spot her, while Reina steps in and tells that boy not to mow down the girl's resolve so easily. Riene snaps into focus, realizing the real problem is just one thing, stopping Ramaria from getting identified, so she hatches a new plan, tells everyone she'll borrow the young lady for a second, and then yanks open a nearby door like it's about to change everything. 3 minutes later, the door slams open again, and Reina is standing there with a woman who has striking blue hair and an elegant updo, dressed in a sleek dark kimono. Noah, Tia, and the fairy freeze in shock, staring like, wait, who is she? The transformed woman speaks, and her voice seals the impossible. She really is Ramaria. Ino blurts her name in pure shock while his companions stare back just as stunned. Tia reels from the shock, staring at how that once shy girl now looks completely different, while Riene smirks and pulls out her ace, Minstrel, which lets her flip her entire appearance in an instant with makeup, dye, and hair work. Ramaria, meanwhile, clutches her hands and admits she's feeling a bit embarrassed in the new outfit. She meets Noah's gaze with hopeful eyes and asks if she can go with him right now, and he just stares back, knowing nobody in their right mind would recognize her, but still, a tiny doubt gnaws at him. He whipped around to Reina and pitched a new disguise for Ramaria, ditch the courtesan act and have her play a maid instead, and he barely gave it a second thought either way, because he genuinely felt the courtesan role fit her just as perfectly. Riene clocked his real motive instantly. He even admitted he was hesitant, because he didn't want the fortress soldiers to lay eyes on Ramaria in something too revealing. With a knowing grin, Riene teased him for how fiercely he protected the girl, then waved them off, sending them on their way with warm wishes, while Ramaria, now sporting her hair done up with 2 long braids, watched from the side. With the problem handled, he snapped back to the group. Then a wild idea hit him, and he whipped around and said, "All right, we're taking a bath." Ramaria and Fairy didn't hesitate. They blurted his name and cheered like they couldn't wait. He grinned and doubled down on his earlier words, saying with bright cheer that yeah, today all 4 of us are getting in the bath together. The moment he said it, Tia, Fairy, and Ramaria froze in stunned silence, their faces screaming shock and total disbelief. At a private Ruiz-owned property, Tia can't believe what she's seeing. She swore they'd all bathe together, but everyone's still fully clothed. Inoa grins and explains they're covered in special sound-aware gear, so they can enjoy the bath without making a peep, and he's absolutely thrilled they all get to share the moment with the sound still guarded. As Ramaria snaps at him, she demands he quit saying it that way, because it sounds like some kind of fiery and watery torture. He steers the crew straight to a wooden door and lets them in on the secret. This sauna supercharges everyone inside, giving a huge temporary boost to all their abilities. Tia leans in, sniffs Inoa, and snaps that he's got ulterior motives, because all she thinks he wants is to bathe with her. Inoa wipes at a tear, pretending he's wounded, and shoots back that he didn't realize the girl with motives was her. Then Ramaria cuts in, calling it out. Tia is the one playing dirty. The trial of the 12 spells out the exact ritual. 8 minutes in a 198 degrees F level sauna for a full harmonization, then 30 seconds in a cold bath, then 5 minutes breathing in outdoor air. Each full cycle spikes every stat by 300, but all other skill boosts get shut down. The sauna cranks hotter every time you repeat it, and after Innova reads the rules and chugs water, she shoots the question, are they ready to go in? In the blazing hot room, Tia flung her arms wide and shouted that she feels totally relaxed, but Romario kept staring at her with worry, begging her not to push it and to bail the moment the heat starts getting too intense. The glass flips and bam, the sand starts pouring out. The trial is officially starting. Then just as it hits later, sweat beads start streaming down his body, while her bright joy is gone, replaced by a tight, strained face as she struggles through the brutal heat, convinced 5 minutes can't possibly have passed yet. She clenches her teeth, sweat pouring down as the brutal heat crushes in, and right beside her, Ino clocks her trouble after just 1 minute. Then he asks if she can't handle the heat, and she shoots back a denial, insisting it's nothing at all. Denial blows apart a moment later. She storms out of the sauna, screeching that it's way too hot and she's done. Fairy and Ramario stare, shocked to see even Lady Tia has a breaking point. Then Inao finally clicks it. Of course tigers can't stand the heat. 5 minutes later, trapped inside that sweltering room, Ino wipes the sweat off his chin and lets out a heavy breath. Yeah, this heat is starting to crush him too. She flicks her eyes to his other companions. Each fairy looks completely chill, and then asks Ramaria if she's okay, and Ramaria just smiles calmly, saying she feels absolutely no problem at all. Inoa is blown away by their resilience, staring in awe at how perfectly the 2 of them are holding up against the scorching heat. The trial keeps roaring on until the 8-minute mark hits, and then he forces one last breath of effort, because the first stage is officially over. Noah staggered onto the cool stone floor, hunched over and spent, he barely scraped through. Fairy says the air still feels sweltering, and Ramaria looks genuinely shocked that the session ended so fast. After everything's done, the 3 plunge into the icy bath, and Oar exhales a long, shaking sigh as the cold finally hits and soothes him. Fairy grins, saying she's starting to get used to the chill, while Ramaria shuts her eyes and murmurs in pure bliss, like this cold feels amazing. She sank into the cool water, hoping Tia would finally feel how good it was, but from a nearby bath, Tia snapped back that she wanted nothing to do with it. She lazily stretched in the water, then admitted she'd always come back to the comforting, old-school bath in the end. Back in the icy bath with everyone else, Fairy finally admitted she couldn't wrap her head around how they managed that brutal heat, saying it wrecked her too. Then Ino, worried as hell, asked if she was really okay. She told them that Anoa's pain-stricken face gave her the fuel to push forward, and Ramaria cut in. They'd run this cycle again and again. This time it would spike to 230 degrees. Anoa still felt confident he could take it, so Ramaria pointed out that Fairy was amazingly heat-resistant, and Fairy confirmed it without hesitation. Their talk got slammed to a stop when the outside door slid open, and there was Tia, standing there like she'd just been stripped down to nothing, staring at Noah and demanding, "Why are you not wearing anything?" He panicked so hard he blurted that you're supposed to wear clothes for the air bath, swore he'd put his on the second he stepped outside, then tried to announce it was time for the outdoor part, but his voice died when he took in her completely naked form. Stunned out of disbelief, he could only stare and demand, "What are you doing?" While Tia, wiping sweat off her brow like it was nothing, shrugged and said it was just way too hot in there. With that, she slid onto the edge of the wooden deck, gripping it like it was her last safe spot. She lounges there like she owns the place, and Innova can't keep his cool at all, so he decides to shut his eyes and just leave, but she twists it into something else, tells him to do whatever he wants, and swears she won't get seduced. The accusation hits him like a punch, and he's totally stunned. Confusion wrecks his balance, and he slips hard on the whetstone, pitching backward through the air. Ramaria and Fairy scream his name in panic as he tumbles, then dread spikes as he braces for a headfirst crash, only to realize his fall is mysteriously soft, cushioned by a Ramaria sound outfit. He realizes he landed right in Ramaria's lap, and she grips his shoulders with gentle care, her face brimming with worry as she demands to know if he's okay. He blurts out a frantic apology, but the moment Ramaria realizes just how close they are, she snaps back, flustered, demanding to know why he's the one begging forgiveness. She tries to explain everything, saying she was only touching him, but her words choke off mid-sentence and the meaning hangs there, making Noah's embarrassment burn even hotter. The moment hits Ramaria like a tidal wave. Her face burns from deep shadows to a flush, and her eyes spin wildly with raw, unstoppable shock. He now bolts away from her, drops to the stone floor at once, and slams his forehead down hard, insisting it's him who should be apologizing for making her feel so uncomfortable. Tia stands nearby, watches everything crash into place, and blurted out an apology. This whole mess is her fault. Then she turns to Fairy and insists, with zero hesitation, that Inao's presence doesn't bother her at all. If anything, she's grateful, just not in some weird, twisted way. When night rolled in, the crew collapsed onto a long wooden deck outside, and the air finally cooled down after that brutal heat from the sauna. They sprawled on the lounge chairs, breathing hard as they recovered, and Tia laughed that her body felt warm and totally at ease, while Ano just shrugged, saying he felt nothing at all, and Ramaria snapped, "You were only in there for a moment." What? Then he shifted his focus to Ramaria, confessing he'd been scared she wouldn't like the sound, but boom, turns out his worries were totally wrong. Puzzled, she shot back, "Why would you even think that?" Inoa pointed her to what she'd said before. She'd called it self-inflicted torture. She rushed in to calm everyone down, swearing she was totally fine, and telling Tia and Fairy they didn't have to worry about her at all. Inoa's jaw dropped when she admitted it. She was actually glad she'd become a slave. She gave a soft smile and laid out the whole truth. Being enslaved is what shoved her into meeting all of them, and that alone lit up her heart with pure joy. Then she remembered how they raged and fought for her. Her voice turned deadly serious, and her eyes begged them to stop. She pleaded, "Don't you ever risk your lives for me again." He started to argue back, admitting she got Ramaria's feelings but still refusing her request, while Ano just stared at Ramaria, his face tight with worry, as he called out her name. As Fairy gives a quiet nod, Tia turns to Ramaria's plea and fires back. She tells her that getting mad, throwing fists, or risking everything is just what you do when your companions are counting on you. Ramaria drinks in every word, knowing it's true but still freezing up. She starts to object under her breath, but then, before she can even finish, Inoa barges in with a bright, reassuring grin and tells her, "If it ever feels too hard, don't you hold back, ask us." Then he leans in with iron certainty and promises that no matter what comes, they'll fix it together. A heartfelt promise hits Almeria like a wave, and she just stares up at the night sky for a beat. Then bam, that radiant smile lights her up. Lying back with her hands pressed to her heart, she blurts out that right now she's happy to be alive like it's the whole world. Her joy is so loud even Tia can't help asking, "You sure?" And Almeria fires back an emphatic yes before she grins at Inoa, practically begging for a second round. The very next morning, Inoa swings open the living area door and freezes at what he sees. On the couch, Tia is softly cupping Fairy's sharp elf ear, while Fairy gleefully strokes Tia's striped tail like it's the best secret in the world. Inoa's cheeks burn as he blurts that Reina Sam is due any moment, and they've got to scramble and get changed, right now. From just a few steps away, Ramaria clocks them touching and demands, "What are you two doing?" Tia grins like she's in heaven, saying, "We're touching," then gushes that her ears and tail feel so soft and fluffy against their hands. Then she whips her focus to Fairy and gushes that the elf's ears are unbelievably long, pointy, and adorable, and Fairy flushes, muttering that she really doesn't need all that praise. The exchange does nothing to soothe Inoa. He just freezes in the doorway, eyes wide with pure shock. Then Tia spots him and beams, inviting him to join, and Inoa blurts out that he's fine, stammering through it. Even as he starts to fade back, his eyes stay locked on her wagging tail, and Inao can only choke out a sound, because the truth hits him fast. His fascination is so obvious, it's basically a confession that he's a confirmed cat lover. His silence feels like an open invitation, so she swivels away and flashes him her backside with a teasing look over her shoulder. Then she purrs, begging him to come closer, because there's no reason to hold back. It stung his eyes. He sputtered that it wasn't the problem, even as his gaze snapped to Ramaria, where her hands were clenched tight and her eyes glittered with a fierce, unsaid longing. Her crushing longing sparks a plan in his head. He tells him Ramaria can reach out and touch Tia instead. Ramaria freezes, stunned that this might actually work, and Tia, still a little annoyed, just nods her on, go ahead. She felt it way too good, genuinely stunned by how insanely fluffy that tail was, while Ino, watching from the side, started to panic with embarrassment when they told Ramario she could even rub her face in it if she wanted. Tia flashed him a smug look, clearly loving every second, and basically beckoned Inoa to come closer too. Then she yanked Ramaria into a tight hug on the couch and murmured that letting feelings like that wrecks your health. While Inoa couldn't take it, jealousy hit him like a storm, yet he shut his eyes hard and forced himself to fight the urge. His internal battle got cut off by a sharp knock at the door. Then a maid barged in and said that lady was awake. Inao jerked upright, shouting, "Wait, are you all up?" Just moments later, Inao faced Riene Ruiz, and she was practically overflowing with gratitude, telling him she'd already locked in a carriage at the east gate. She even admitted the truth. No matter how unbelievable his skills were, she never imagined he'd build a whole house, and getting the land secured with his help was something she'd never forget. She shot him an approving look and grinned because he'd rounded up a solid crew, then barked the order to everyone to change, promising that once the girl was in her disguise, they'd all rush straight for the east gate. Just as they started, Tia's voice cut in Riene, confused by the sudden move. While the group marched on, a man in a fur-collared coat watched them from the next building, eyes locked in, clocking their target, the eastern stronghold. With hearts fully set, the party locked arms in front of the towering east gate of the Val's kingdom. Inoa, fresh in a new green coat, took the center, guarded by Riene, the maid, a Ramaria in her cloak, and Tia, now rocking a sharp black dress. The countdown to their journey had officially begun. The whole group readied themselves, then the newest girl fidgeted and confessed to Ramalia that she still couldn't get used to her brand new role. Ramalia, her hair now styled completely different, just smiled and told her she hadn't changed that much. Riene Ruiz watched with a sharp eye, took a drag from her pipe, and said the maid looked miserable because of the glasses Inoa handed her. Then she snapped that all she'd changed for Romelia's disguise was her hair, its color, and the style. Close by, Fairy Hoodup now fidgeted and thanked Inoa for the moment, grinning as she said the glasses looked perfect on her, and Inoa chuckled back. It's always smarter to be safe than sorry, because Dominic had already found their crew once before. Riene snapped her focus back onto Inoa and checked that Romelia really would play servant as planned, then pressed him hard about what he planned to do with the rest of the girls in their party. He shot back, asking if she meant the gift he'd been picturing for their entrance. His eyes sharpened into cold calculation, and he wasted no time. He laid out his plan to get them accepted without a single red flag. Then he straight up offered them as tribute. Then he spooled out the whole plan. He'd show up as a branch family member of House Wishtar, palm Ramalia as his servant, brag that he'd already seized Fairy, the elven princess, while Tia would be sold as a beast he'd hauled in on the road, and the moment captured hit the air, Ramalia visibly flinched. Riene got it instantly, the same gift he'd been talking about, and she realized this plan could finally get them inside. Then she told everyone why they came in the first place. Fairy's people were locked up in that fortress. Fairy confirmed it, voice heavy, and admitted her homeland was already gone. And when it hit Tia that Fairy was the real princess, she snapped with shock and apologized for tying her clothes to sell the slave lie. Fairy only shrugged and said it was okay. Riene Ruiz bursts out with gratitude, and then drops the bombshell that her own daughter is trapped right inside the stronghold too, so she swears she'll rescue her. Noah immediately fires back, asking the girl's name, and Riene answers, Ramilia, red hair, tied off to one side. Then she drops a blunt warning, her daughter's got a stubborn streak and distrust in her bones. Riene insists, even if we save Ramilia, she still might not believe a single word we say. Ino hears her out and his face shifts into deep thought. For a heartbeat he weighs the snag, then his eyes blaze as a plan clicks into place, and with a steady hand he pulls a shimmering, pixelated object right out of thin air, grinning as he swears they're going to use it to smash the problem. The thing hardens into a hand-sized walkie-talkie, and he spots it instantly as a camping item, telling Reina, "Since we're going to be split up, keep this right up by your face so you can use it." He keeps going, saying this will let her talk to her own daughter face-to-face and explain everything herself. Then, to prove it, he talks through his device. The moment his voice blares out from the one Renee's holding, she jolts like she's been caught off guard. She inspects the device, her eyes widening at how perfectly it's built, and she admits it feels like it was crafted by a true master. Then, a little stunned by all the praise, Inao watches Renee grin and happily agrees to use the walkie-talkie. With everything prepped and locked in, the massive doors crash open, and outside, a horse-drawn carriage is already waiting, doors poised to roll as they're ready to leave. She leans toward the carriage, eyes locked and unshakable, then turns back one final time. Reina doesn't just trust the group, she hands them her daughter's faith with her whole heart. As Renee fades away, the story snaps to Anoa and the crew, Tia, Fairy, and a maid packed into a rolling carriage, while Anoa grips his fists tight and declares, with pure iron resolve, that he's all in on the plan. His mind races to the people he's fighting to save. First Remilia, trapped behind brutal walls, and then the poor elves, locked away and suffering in captivity. His thoughts snap to Trisha's image, her profile carved in pure determination. Finally, Alan crashes into his mind, and with a fierce, silent vow, he swears he'll rescue every last one of them. Right then, a brutal rumble crashes through the Wishtar residence, rattling the massive stone structure so hard it shakes at the very roots. The tremors cause snaps into view as the outer wall erupts and caves inward. Then a bald, bearded man freezes in shock, staring at a hulking powerhouse kneeling in the wreckage after he just smashed the stone to pieces with nothing but raw brute force. Inside, a guard flinches in pure terror when he finally grasps the legend's truth. He can't even get the words out as he swears his captain got wiped out in one brutal strike, and then it hits him. Treja is the infamous cursed sword woman. Trisha's transformation hits like a thunderclap, her hair now blazing a furious red as she stands in elegant armor, gripping a gigantic glowing sword that crackles with pure energy, and she even sounds a little apologetic when she admits that controlling it is tough because she only pushed out 20%, and this is the real power of Lady Trisha.